Chapter 526. Ning Shu purposely went to Chu Xiaoran's company to annoy him and then returned to the law firm. Ning Shu went to Chu Xiaoran with a purpose. She wanted to do what a bait should do. Instead of worrying about her life every day, she might as well catch them all at once. Although it was a little dangerous, she hoped that the results would be satisfactory. In the following days, Ning Shu clearly felt that someone was following her, but these people did not take action. They just followed her and were very cautious. If not for Ning Shu's superb martial arts skills, she would not have noticed them at all. These people looked much more powerful than the hooligans she met before. Ning Shu had a signal transmitter on her. It was placed on her by the authorities. If something really happened, the police would receive the signal and rush over. Ning Shu felt that she had gone all out for this mission. She had to fight against a man with power and influence. That was how tough it was. If you want to woo Chu Xiaoran, you don't have to go through so much trouble. 2333 suddenly appeared and said indifferently, "Don't they say that men conquer the world and women conquer men with their bodies? This is the advantage of women. Leave the fighting and killing to men. Woo your ass. I'm a man now. You want me, a man, to woo Chu Xiaoran? Is your system okay? I think you've been poisoned." Ning Shu wanted to kneel down to 2333. "Oh, I forgot." 2333 said. "Ning Shu. Do you think that if I woo a man with my charm value, he will care about me?" Ning Shu asked. 2333. No. She wanted to create a brand new life for her client. Could it be that finding a good man for her client was a successful life? Could it be that marrying a powerful man was a successful life? Maybe it was a successful life, but there was nothing happier than being free to be yourself, doing what you want to do, doing what you love, and realizing your dreams. No matter what kind of person she was, having someone by her side who could help her in times of need was love. Ning Shu wanted to go on in the thousands of planes. Feelings were not important to Ning Shu. They were more of a tie. If she wanted someone to accompany her, Ning Shu hoped that it would be when she could control her own destiny. Ning Shu's goal now was to live, a person's heart was too heavy. Ning Shu had nothing to exchange for her heart. If she gave her heart away, how could she go to the thousands of planes freely? If his life wasn't his, and his heart wasn't his, then what else did he have? Ning Shu avoided having feelings for the people in the mission. Of course, others did not like her. This was a rather sad topic. "You're so stubborn." 2333 laughed at Ning Shu and then went silent. Ning Shu felt that Chu Xiaoran's underground power should be quite big when she sensed that he was peeping at her like a shadow. Therefore, not only did he have to attack Chu Xiaoran's strength on the surface, but he also had to remove Chu Xiaoran's underworld forces. Chu Xiaoran's strength was not small. He was simply blessed by nature and favored by the heavens. Ning Shu drove and looked at the people following behind through the rear-view mirror. Ning Shu thought for a while and drove to a remote place. In the end, he was blocked by several cars. Ning Shu, who was in the car, pressed the button on his watch and sent out a signal. The window of a car rolled down, revealing a face that Ning Shu was very familiar with. Chu Xiaoran turned to look at Ning Shu. "Lawyer Su, we meet again." Ning Shu secretly pressed the button on his watch several times and said, "President Chu." Ning Shu looked around and said faintly, "It's fate to meet in such a desolate place." Chu Xiaoran turned to look at Ning Shu and smiled at him. "It's not a coincidence at all. I came here especially for you." Ning Shu pressed the button on his watch again and looked at the burly men around him. These men were covered in blood and had a murderous aura. It was obvious that they had taken lives. Ning Shu's heart sank. Previously, when he looked at Chu Xiaoran's company, he felt that it was going to collapse. However, now that he saw Chu Xiaoran's subordinates, Ning Shu suspected that Chu Xiaoran wanted to go from the light to the dark and only manage his underworld forces. This was not what Ning Shu wanted to see. He was afraid that Chu Xiaoran would develop in a gray area without the constraints of the law on the surface. He would only be more successful. Ning Shu kept pressing the watch on his wrist, but he did not dare to be too obvious. He said to Chu Xiaoran, then, President Chu, why are you looking for me? I'm afraid of such a big scene. Chu Xiaoran smiled evilly. Lawyer Su, you also know how to be afraid. I thought that Lawyer Su was not afraid of anything. I didn't see you being afraid when you were standing at the plaintiff's table. Chu Xiaoran waved his hand, and the burly men around him surrounded him. A man reached out and wanted to open the car door, but the door was locked by Ning Shu. Open the door. The man smashed the car window and reached his hand in, wanting to open the car door. However, Ning Shu punched the man's nose with all his might, causing blood to splatter from the man's nose. He fell to the ground and fainted. Chu Xiaoran looked at the man who fainted on the ground, then glanced at Ning Shu. With a cold and cruel expression, he said, catch her. I'll deal with her myself. Ning Shu originally wanted to drive away, but his car was blocked from all sides and couldn't be driven away at all. Ning Shu was pulled out of the car by a few burly men. Chu Xiaoran got out of the car. His black leather shoes were shiny, and when he stepped on the yellow sand, he was tall and handsome, giving off the vibe of a dark emperor. Ning Shu kicked the man who was pulling his arm in the crotch. The man groaned in pain, bent his body and clamped his leg, and rolled his eyes in pain. Chu Xiaoran's face darkened, and several burly men surrounded Ning Shu. Ning Shu was a little anxious. She had already sent out the signal, but why was there no response? Could it be that this place was too remote, and the signal was not good? Looking at these burly men surrounding him, Ning Shu didn't intend to fight them head-on. He just wanted to break out of the encirclement and run away as soon as possible. Ning Shu's body tensed up. He chose a direction to break out of the encirclement and fought with these men. These burly men were ruthless, but Ning Shu wasn't bad either. He had been practicing peerless martial arts ever since he came to this world. Although he didn't cultivate Qi Jin, his physical fitness was very good. Ning Shu pulled up his trousers. Ning Shu tied a dagger under his trousers. Facing these men who rushed up, Ning Shu directly stabbed at the vital parts of the men. Anyway, it was either he or she who died. Ning Shu injured a few men. He raised the dagger and was about to stab it into the burly man's throat, but he felt something cold against his head. Ning Shu rolled her eyes and saw Chu Xiaoran holding a gun in his hand and pressing it against her temple. Ning Shu's heart trembled. Chu Xiaoran actually has a gun. Chapter 527. Ning Shu originally thought that Chu Xiaoran had some underground forces, but now that he saw the gun in Chu Xiaoran's hand, Ning Shu's heart sank. It seemed that he had to re-evaluate Chu Xiaoran's power. With a gun in his hand, he was no longer an ordinary gangster. Because there was a gun pointed at him, Ning Shu did not dare to act rashly. The dagger in his hand was also taken away and he could not move. Chu Xiaoran did not say anything and first punched Ning Shu's stomach. Ning Shu suddenly felt a pain in his stomach. Secretary Su, aren't you good at fighting? Chu Xiaoran said coldly. Chu Xiaoran still hated Ning Shu for hitting him at the entrance of the court. Ning Shu was in so much pain that he took a deep breath. He looked like he was in extreme pain. Drag him into the car. Chu Xiaoran looked at Ning Shu's evil expression. He was probably thinking about how to torture Ning Shu to death. At this moment, the sound of police sirens came. In the blink of an eye, the police cars were getting closer and closer. Chu Xiaoran looked a little stunned. He glanced at Ning Shu and raised his gun, wanting to shoot Ning Shu to death. Ning Shu dragged the two people who were on top of him and threw one of them towards Chu Xiaoran at the risk of losing one of his arms. The person who was thrown out by Ning Shu was shot dead by Chu Xiaoran, but Chu Xiaoran was pressed down by the corpse. The police came over. Chu Xiaoran pushed away the corpse on top of him, raised his arm to cover his face, and got into the car. After getting into the car, he fired a shot at Ning Shu. Ning Shu lay on the ground, but the bullet still grazed his shoulder. It was burning, but the blood could not stop flowing. His whole body was cold. Ning Shu looked at the license plate number of Chu Xiaoran's car. When the police came, Ning Shu quickly said, "The license plate number is T5348. The police car chased after Chu Xiaoran. Ning Shu was too tired and injured, so he was sent to the hospital and fell into a deep sleep. When he woke up again, Ning Shu felt that his body had fallen apart. One of his hands could not move at all, and the wound on his shoulder had been bandaged. "Son, you're awake." When Mother Su came in and saw that Ning Shu had woken up, her eyes turned red. "You're finally awake. You scared your father and me. We only have one son. What are we going to do if something happens to you? Catching criminals is the job of the police. You're just a normal citizen, yet you're doing something so dangerous. Have you ever thought about your parents?" Mother Su's voice was shaking as she spoke. Ning Shu knew that Mother Su was worried about him, so he quickly promised that there would be no next time. The authorities also came to visit Ning Shu. They even gave Ning Shu a banner of the people's hero. Then, the half-crippled Ning Shu had to sit up and use his mobile hand to hold the banner and take a photo with the authorities. He had an expression that said, "I'm honored, I'm proud, I should do this." When the authorities and reporters left, Ning Shu immediately said to Mother Su, "Mom, help me to sleep. Damn it, my whole body hurts." Looking at the cheap banner, Ning Shu's body hurt even more. "I can give you a banner, but you should at least give me something practical." However, Ning Shu learned that Chu Xiaoran was eventually stopped by police cars, just like how they stopped Ning Shu previously. Ning Shu felt very happy. Chu Xiaoran was temporarily detained, and the authorities quickly raided Chu Xiaoran's lair. Chu Xiaoran was an underground gambling den and a loan shark. The interest was compounded with the profits from the gambling den, and he used Chu Xiaoran's company to launder money. When the authorities came to visit Ning Shu, they were all smiles because this was another large sum of money. The more money there was, the better T-City would be able to develop. Ning Shu told the authorities that they must confiscate Chu Xiaoran's assets, and the authorities said that they would not even let go of a lackey. Only then did Ning Shu feel relieved. Even if he saw the cheap banner, his liver did not hurt as much. Ning Shu was hospitalized. The ligament in one of her arms was severely strained and dislocated. It was estimated that this arm would not have much strength for a year and a half. However, Ning Shu felt that it was worth it to pay such a price in exchange for Chu Xiaoran's imprisonment. Ning Shu was discharged from the hospital after resting for half a month. Chu Xiaoran's case was not tried, and the authorities released Chu Xiaoran instead. However, Chu Xiaoran's underground forces had been completely removed. Ning Shu felt very uncomfortable. If Chu Xiaoran was charged with being involved in the underworld, he would not be able to make a comeback for the rest of his life. After the authorities released Chu Xiaoran, they urged Chu Xiaoran to pay a fine of 1.4 billion yuan every day. Now, Chu Xiaoran no longer had the courage to throw a tantrum with the authorities. In the end, he collected 1.4 billion yuan in savings. As soon as Chu Xiaoran paid the fine, he was immediately detained. After a period of time, when there was enough evidence, Chu Xiaoran would be charged with being involved in the underworld. Ning Shu was speechless. He was really speechless. They released him so that Chu Xiaoran could collect enough money to pay the fine. After he paid the fine, they immediately arrested him again. It felt like Chu Xiaoran had been played to a pulp. Ning Shu immediately felt at ease and hung the banner of the people's hero in the most conspicuous place in the law firm. Without Chu Xiaoran, who was a ticking time bomb, Ning Shu felt more comfortable all over. He had never felt so relaxed before. However, some people just did not want Ning Shu to feel comfortable. Xia Xiaoman came again and howled at the entrance of the law firm. She screamed at the top of her lungs, calling Su Wenlang, come out. Now, she did not even call him Brother Wenlang and just called him Su Wenlang. Ning Shu plugged in his earphones and listened to music, ignoring Xia Xiaoman who was screaming. However, Xia Xiaoman directly knelt at the door with the sun above her head. Her body was on the verge of collapsing. Others wanted to help her up, but Xia Xiaoman glared at them fiercely, as if the person who wanted to help her was her enemy. Ning Shu pulled open the curtains and took a look. Xia Xiaoman's face was pale, her back was very straight, and she was wearing loose clothes. Ning Shu shook his head. It was one thing for her to humiliate herself, but she completely ignored the child in her womb. Xia Xiaoman fainted outside because of the sun. Ning Shu had no choice but to get someone to bring her in. The staff of the law firm fanned her while pinching her philtrum. Ning Shu saw that her eyelashes kept trembling and knew that Xia Xiaoman was pretending to be unconscious. Xia Xiaoman slowly woke up. She rolled her eyes and finally fixed them on Ning Shu. She stood up from the sofa, her lips trembling, and her expression was blank and flustered. She questioned, "Why did you do this? Why?" Ning Shu was speechless. He was so confused. He had no idea what she was talking about. "Why did you do this? What good will it do you if Chu Xiaoran goes to jail? Why did you do this?" Xia Xiaoman felt that the person in front of her was very unfamiliar. This was not the Brother Wenlang in her memory. Brother Wenlang would not be so cold and heartless. Ning Shu was speechless. Why is it so tiring to talk to her? Does she not know the reason at all? Haven't you always wanted to leave Chu Xiaoran? I'm helping you. Ning Shu spread his hands expressionlessly and said, "Didn't you say that you hate Chu Xiaoran? Didn't you say that Chu Xiaoran played you? You should be happy that Chu Xiaoran is like this." Chapter 528. Now that Chu Xiaoran was in such a state, Xia Xiaoman could totally take the opportunity to get rid of him. However, Xia Xiaoman didn't do that. Previously, she was gnashing her teeth in hatred, but now that Chu Xiaoran was in dire straits, Xia Xiaoman's heart softened. "Brother Wenlang, I understand what you're saying. Although Chu Xiaoran forced himself on me and toyed with me in the beginning, he's still the father of the child in my stomach," Xia Xiaoman said to Ning Shu. "Brother Wenlang, I beg you to let Chu Xiaoran off." Ning Shu rubbed the corners of his eyes and looked at Xia Xiaoman as if he was looking at an idiot. Would he let Chu Xiaoran off just because she said so? Ning Shu was very curious about what kind of life Xia Xiaoman was living every day. He really didn't understand anything about the human world. Why did he feel that Xia Xiaoman was living a completely isolated life? All she had to do was lie in bed and serve Chu Xiaoran. "You want to save Chu Xiaoran?" Ning Shu asked in disbelief. This was the first time Ning Shu had seen someone like Xia Xiaoman. He didn't know how to describe Xia Xiaoman. She wasn't a wicked person and was even a little kind. However, she didn't seem to have a brain. Everything she did brought disaster to others, and she did it out of kindness. Xia Xiaoman was an idiot. Xia Xiaoman said firmly, "Brother Wenlang, as long as I can save Chu Xiaoran, I'm willing to do anything." Ning Shu's body trembled. Damn it, here she is again. She's willing to give up everything for the sake of her loved one. It's the same as when she endured humiliation and became Su Wenlang's mistress in order to protect the reputation of the Su and Xia families and Su Wenlang's career. Give up everything. Ning Shu looked at Xia Xiaoman's tragic expression that looked like she was about to jump off a cliff. She was speechless. Xia Xiaoman nodded. Yes, I'm willing to give up everything. This matter happened because of me. Brother Wenlang, I know I've let you down. If you can save Chu Xiaoran, I promise you that I won't be with her anymore. Then, let's leave this place. Ning Shu hammered his chest, saying that Xia Xiaoman had given up on Chu Xiaoran in order to save him. Xia Xiaoman and he would leave this place and return a few years later. Chu Xiaoran and Xia Xiaoman would meet again, and Chu Xiaoran would feel that Xia Xiaoman had betrayed him. Xia Xiaoman would be unable to voice her bitterness, and the two of them would start a torturous relationship again. Damn it, she was still a pitiful supporting male character. For the sake of the plot, she would not touch Xia Xiaoman for the next few years. She would also raise Xia Xiaoman's child. Ning Shu hammered his chest again. Looking at Xia Xiaoman's expression, which seemed to be ready to die, Ning Shu waved his hand and said, if you want to be with Chu Xiaoran, then go ahead. Don't drag me into this. Xia Xiaoman, when will you understand that we are already over? If you come looking for me again, I will kill Chu Xiaoran. Xia Xiaoman widened her eyes and looked at Ning Shu with tears in her almond-shaped eyes. Brother Wenlang, as long as you save Chu Xiaoran, I'll never look for you again. Get lost. Xia Xiaoman's face turned pale and she looked sad. Obviously, she was sad because of Ning Shu's coldness. As soon as Xia Xiaoman left, Ning Shu took a deep breath. Xia Xiaoman had refreshed his worldview. Xia Xiaoman always had a mysterious confidence when facing him. Leave this place. It's easy to say that you want me to give up my career and go with you. Where's my brain? Xia Xiaoman simply thought of one thing after another. Her mind was unbelievably simple. Chu Xiaoran had been detained and his company had completely collapsed. All the company's resources had been divided up by other companies. The large-scale production base had been auctioned off by the authorities, and the money naturally flowed into the government's pockets. In short, Chu Xiaoran's matter this time had helped the authorities remove the thorn in their side. They also reaped the benefits of not collecting money, and their finances were not so difficult. The miscellaneous items added up to nearly 10 billion yuan, which showed that Chu Xiaoran's net worth was not low. Chu Xiaoran, who had been detained, probably did not know that he had lost everything and had been robbed clean by the authorities. 10 billion yuan could support the development of one or two large-scale construction projects in T-City, such as road construction and the construction of basic urban facilities. Meanwhile, Xia Xiaoman was waiting foolishly for Ning Shu to rescue Chu Xiaoran, but she did not dare to look for Ning Shu. She was afraid that Ning Shu would really kill Chu Xiaoran. Now, Xia Xiaoman was somewhat afraid of Ning Shu. She stayed in the villa every day and was simply like a rock waiting for her husband. When Xia Xiaoman's mother found out about this matter, she persuaded Xia Xiaoman to give up on Chu Xiaoran. Chu Xiaoran was now a reformed-through labor prisoner and was no longer the powerful CEO Chu. Moreover, this man had forced himself on her daughter back then. Now that such a thing had happened, Xia Xiaoman's mother felt that her daughter could get rid of Chu Xiaoran and start a new life, no longer being bullied by that man. However, the child in her stomach was a problem. Xia Xiaoman's mother struggled for a while and asked Xia Xiaoman to get an abortion. Xia Xiaoman was not married yet. If she kept the child, it would be an unmarried child. Moreover, the child's father was a reformed-through labor prisoner. Would the child be happy after being born? Xia Xiaoman's mother was also considering the reality. It was better to have a short pain than a long pain. Xia Xiaoman could still start a new life. However, if she kept the child in her stomach, Xia Xiaoman's life would be more painful and tortuous. When Xia Xiaoman heard her mother asking her to get an abortion, she clutched her stomach in horror. She was so shocked that her voice changed. "Mom, what are you saying? You want me to abort this child? This is my child. He's your grandson. This is a life. How can you be so cruel? Xia Xiaoman's mother did not speak for a long time. When she heard her daughter's words, she did not know what to say. After a while, she said, "You can choose not to abort the child. Let's leave this place and move to another place. Your father and I will take care of this child. Don't have anything to do with Chu Xiaoran anymore." Xia Xiaoman shook her head and said, "Mom, I won't leave Chu Xiaoran. He's only in dire straits now. Moreover, he's the child's father. I have him in my heart." "What are you saying? Are you going to wait for Chu Xiaoran to come back? He treated you so badly in the past and forced you to break up with Su Wenlang. If it weren't for Chu Xiaoran, you would have already married Su Wenlang and had a child. Isn't the child a bastard? Now you're saying that you love Chu Xiaoran. Xia Xiaoman, are you trying to drive me and your father to death? You must leave with us. You can keep the child, but you can't see Chu Xiaoran anymore." Xia Xiaoman's mother said and went to the bedroom to pack Xia Xiaoman's things. Obviously, she wanted to take Xia Xiaoman away. Seeing her mother's tough attitude, Xia Xiaoman knelt in front of her and sobbed. "Mom, Chu Xiaoran and I are truly in love. Please give us your blessings. No matter what Chu Xiaoran is like now, I still love him in my heart. Even if I leave Chu Xiaoran, I won't marry another man," Xia Xiaoman said firmly. Chapter 529. Xia Xiaoman's mother didn't expect her daughter to be so stubborn as to insist on being with Chu Xiaoran. She really wanted to beat her to death. Xia Xiaoman's mother didn't think that Chu Xiaoran loved her daughter. If he really loved her, why didn't he get married after so many years? However, Xia Xiaoman was determined to be with Chu Xiaoran. Everything she did was out of consideration for Xia Xiaoman's future. Xia Xiaoman still had a long life ahead of her, but her daughter didn't appreciate it. Xia Xiaoman's mother was angry and anxious. She said fiercely, "If you really want to be with Chu Xiaoran, I'll take it that I've never given birth to you. Don't you have any shame? Because of you, your father and I have been treated with disdain whenever we go out. They're all laughing at us openly and secretly. The Xia family has been completely disgraced." Xia Xiaoman cried sadly and repeatedly said, "Mom, I'm sorry, I'm really sorry. But I can't leave Chu Xiaoran. The child in my stomach belongs to Chu Xiaoran." Xia Xiaoman's mother looked at her daughter and asked, "You mean you want to be with Chu Xiaoran?" Xia Xiaoman nodded while sobbing. Xia Xiaoman's mother was so angry that she threw the clothes in her hand and the suitcase on the ground. "I'll take it that I've never given birth to you." Xia Xiaoman kowtowed a few times to her mother's back and fell to the ground, unable to get up for a long time. Later, the Xia family really moved. Before they left, Xia Xiaoman's mother gave Xia Xiaoman a sum of money and told her to behave herself. Over the years, the Xia family suffered a lot of rumors and slanders because of Xia Xiaoman. Xia Xiaoman's father was a teacher and was a very upright person. However, because of Xia Xiaoman, he couldn't stand up straight in front of his students. Some students would even cover their mouths and laugh when they saw Xia Xiaoman's father, saying behind his back that teacher Xia's daughter was someone else's mistress. The main reason was that Chu Xiaoran was a well-known figure in T City. Xia Xiaoman's father lost a lot of his confidence and felt that he had lost his morals. He didn't have the confidence to discipline his students. Occasionally, his students would even disobey him and say that Xia Xiaoman was his mistress in front of him, causing him to burst into laughter. Xia Xiaoman's father was about to retire, but in the end, he couldn't take it anymore and applied for a transfer to a more remote school with poor conditions. He had really given up on Xia Xiaoman. This daughter of his could do whatever she wanted. If she wanted to be with Chu Xiaoran, so be it. When Ning Shu learned that the Xia family had moved and left Xia Xiaoman alone in T City, he was stunned for a moment before he understood that Xia Xiaoman had been abandoned by the Xia family. Is Xia Xiaoman waiting for Chu Xiaoran to come out? This was true love that would never leave. Ning Shu sighed inwardly at Xia Xiaoman's deep love for Chu Xiaoran. The trial of Chu Xiaoran's case began. As Ning Shu was injured all over, he did not appear in court in person. Chu Xiaoran managed to find a defense lawyer through some unknown means and reduced his sentence from 3 years to 1 year. In other words, Chu Xiaoran had to go to jail for a year because of his involvement in the underworld. This punishment was actually considered light. It was possible that he would not be punished. Xia Xiaoman's face turned pale when she heard the verdict. She looked at Ning Shu, clearly dissatisfied with the verdict. Ning Shu did not pay any attention to her. In fact, Chu Xiaoran himself was quite satisfied with the verdict. After a year, he would be able to make a comeback. Chu Xiaoran, who was in the defendant's seat, glanced at the worried Xia Xiaoman from the corner of his eye and felt a warmth in his heart. However, when he saw Ning Shu, his face immediately turned sullen. He immediately imagined that Xia Xiaoman had gotten together with Su Wenlang because she saw that he was in dire straits. The more he thought about it, the more sullen his face became. Besides, Xia Xiaoman was pregnant with his child. Xia Xiaoman did not know what Chu Xiaoran was thinking. She was full of worry for him and her heart ached for him. After the trial ended, Chu Xiaoran was escorted to the detention center. Ning Shu walked out of the courthouse with a smile on her face. Torturing a person, destroying his life, destroying his beliefs, and trampling on his dignity. She had to watch as his hope was shattered, and she had to watch as the person she hated looked down on her from a high position. Xia Xiaoman caught up with Ning Shu. Ning Shu asked, "Brother Wenlang, why did Chu Xiaoran have to go to jail for another year?" Ning Shu glanced at Xia Xiaoman's belly, which was already slightly protruding. Xia Xiaoman's body was delicate, and she had probably been worried about a lot of things recently. She had lost weight and her belly looked a little big. Ning Shu said calmly, "He should have been sentenced to more than 3 years, but now he only has 1 year. I was the one who secretly found Chu Xiaoran's defense lawyer. If you're still not satisfied with this, I can't do anything about it. Brother Wenlang, don't be angry. I don't mean anything else." Xia Xiaoman hurriedly said, "Brother Wenlang, thank you. Don't come looking for me in the future. If you do, Chu Xiaoran will be in trouble." Ning Shu's face was cold. Xia Xiaoman's face turned bitter. She suddenly felt that the world was so big, but she had no one to rely on. Her parents had left this place, and Xia Xiaoman didn't even know where they went. It was as if they had completely disappeared from her world. Brother Wenlang was no longer the person who had been with her since she was a child. Lonely and fearful, Xia Xiaoman felt very panicked and fearful of the unknown life. Xia Xiaoman had never lived independently for a day. Ning Shu began to work without any distractions. The reputation of the law firm slowly rose, not only in T-City, but also in the surrounding cities. This was the intention of the authorities. They wanted to establish a good image that could even represent the image of T-City. Ning Shu was the one who was pushed to the front. Ning Shu organized the cases that were free of charge into a book. Ning Shu really didn't receive a single cent from these cases. Moreover, the background of each family was clearly investigated. Ning Shu didn't want some people to fish in troubled waters. In a year, Ning Shu was also a lawyer appointed by the government. He went to various towns and villages to disseminate legal knowledge. He went to many places, walked into the mountains, and went to the Jiangnan River. He saw all kinds of environments and helped some people along the way. When Xia Xiaoman gave birth, Ning Shu returned to T-City. Xia Xiaoman was in labor pain for a day and a night before she gave birth to a son. Chu Xiaoran still had 4 months to go before he could be released from prison. He couldn't even see the birth of his child. During the period of Xia Xiaoman's pregnancy, she stayed in the villa that Chu Xiaoran used to hide his mistress. She was alone and hired hourly workers to clean the house. The money she used was given by Mother Xia in advance. If she was short on money, Xia Xiaoman would sell the jewelry in branded bags that Chu Xiaoran gave her previously. Of course, the price was only 1/10 of the original price. Xia Xiaoman was unwilling to do so at first, but under the pressure of survival, she could only sell the things cheaply. She cherished these things very much because they were given to her by Chu Xiaoran. In order to support herself, she could only sell them. When Xia Xiaoman felt aggrieved, she thought of Chu Xiaoran and forced herself to endure. Chapter 530. Xia Xiaoman had given birth to the child, but she had no idea how to take care of him. Facing the wailing child, Xia Xiaoman was at a loss and didn't know what to do. She didn't know if the child was feeling unwell or if he was hungry or peed. Her heart ached when the child cried, and there were too many emotions in her heart. Xia Xiaoman hugged the child and cried too. The empty villa was filled with the child's heart-wrenching cries. Xia Xiaoman hadn't experienced any major events in her life. The Xia family was considered a well-off family. Xia Xiaoman grew up being pampered by the heavens and the earth, and she also had Su Wanlang, her next-door brother. Everything was in front of her. She had yet to step out of society and was polished by society, but Chu Xiaoran had already snatched her away. Even if Chu Xiaoran treated her badly, Xia Xiaoran had never considered her survival and was always entangled in inexplicable matters. Now, the pressure of survival was on her, and she had to raise a child. Without anyone to rely on, Xia Xiaoman felt as if her heart was in a pot of oil. Xia Xiaoman carried the child to the law firm to look for Ning Shu. In T-City, Xia Xiaoman could only think of Ning Shu. Only brother Wen Lang, whom she had known for more than 10 years, could help her. However, when she arrived at the law firm, she was told that Ning Shu wasn't around. Ning Shu stood in front of the window upstairs and saw Xia Xiaoman standing at the door with the child in her arms. Xia Xiaoman had lost a lot of weight and her face was pale. A gust of wind could blow her away. Ning Shu saw Xia Xiaoman's complexion and knew that she was weak. After giving birth to the child, she didn't take good care of herself and hurt her body. It was fine when she was young, but when she grew old, she would be sick. No one else could ruin themselves like this. Xia Xiaoman had no choice but to go back. In the end, an older female employee of the law firm couldn't stand it anymore and suggested to Xia Xiaoman to hire a confinement nanny who could take care of the child. Xia Xiaoman was delighted to hear that someone could help take care of the child, but then her heart turned cold. It would definitely cost a lot of money to hire a confinement nanny, and she didn't have that much money. Xia Xiaoman didn't expect that she would have to worry about money one day. In her previous life, she didn't even have the concept of money. Now, she had to make plans for money and was conflicted for a long time. Thinking of her child, Xia Xiaoman finally gritted her teeth and hired a confinement nanny. However, she was even more nervous now. Xia Xiaoman was thinking about what other things she could sell. With the help of the confinement nanny, Xia Xiaoman could finally take a breather. Then, she stayed in front of the calendar every day and counted the days, waiting for the day that Chu Xiaoran would be released from prison. Ning Shu was also waiting for the day when Chu Xiaoran would be released from prison. What was the point of staying in prison? There were people guarding him 24 hours a day. There was food and drink. When he was bored, there was a group of people to play with him and pick up soap. On the day that Chu Xiaoran was released from prison, Ning Shu drove to the prison gate. When he arrived, Xia Xiaoman was already waiting at the gate. Today, Xia Xiaoman even dressed up. She was wearing a white dress, but she was too thin and didn't look as good as before. There was a lingering tiredness on her body. Ning Shu stayed in the car and didn't get out. He watched as people came out of the prison gate one after another. Chu Xiaoran also came out. Xia Xiaoman covered her mouth and burst into tears. She then threw herself into Chu Xiaoran's arms. Ning Shu looked at Chu Xiaoran. This was completely different from the Chu Xiaoran in his memory. The current Chu Xiaoran had completely lost his noble and proud temperament. Without countless halos, Chu Xiaoran was just an ordinary man. In fact, he couldn't even compare to an ordinary man. Now that Chu Xiaoran had nothing and even had a criminal record, it would be difficult for him to step out of society. However, Ning Shu saw that Chu Xiaoran seemed to be very confident. Ning Shu pursed his lips. Does he still think that he can get up? Even if Chu Xiaoran wanted to get up, Ning Shu wouldn't give him the chance. After glancing at the two people who had successfully joined forces, Ning Shu drove away. In front of the prison gate, Chu Xiaoran and Xia Xiaoman were still hugging each other. Xia Xiaoman felt at ease when she hugged Chu Xiaoran's waist. She felt that she had someone to rely on and was no longer afraid of anything. On the way back to the villa, Xia Xiaoman told Chu Xiaoran about what had happened in the past year. Chu Xiaoran was a little moved. He didn't expect Xia Xiaoman to give up on leaving with her family and stay behind to wait for him. Chu Xiaoran hugged Xia Xiaoman and said, "Let's get married." Xia Xiaoman was very surprised. She smiled and nodded with tears in her eyes. Although there were no flowers or diamond rings, Xia Xiaoman didn't care about these things. She only felt the joy and happiness of being able to stay with her beloved and her child. They would be a happy family. After returning to the villa, Chu Xiaoran hugged his son. His heart was full of hope. With his ability, he would soon return to his peak and give Xia Xiaoman and their child a happy life. If Chu Xiaoran wanted to make a comeback, he needed capital. However, Chu Xiaoran's assets had all been confiscated by the authorities. Chu Xiaoran decided to sell the villa. When he first bought the villa, it cost nearly 10 million yuan. At that time, 10 million yuan was nothing to Chu Xiaoran, but now, it was the only capital he had. It was the capital he needed to make a comeback. After the villa was sold, Chu Xiaoran and Xia Xiaoman moved into an ordinary house in the community and lived a life without a house. Moreover, the confinement nanny who took care of the child was also dismissed. Hence, the responsibility of taking care of the child fell on Xia Xiaoman's shoulders. Chu Xiaoran took the money from selling the villa and went out to look for business opportunities. However, he usually didn't gain anything after a day. When Chu Xiaoran returned home, he didn't even have a hot meal to eat. Without the confinement nanny by her side, Xia Xiaoman found it very difficult to take care of the child. When Chu Xiaoran returned, she asked Xia Xiaoman to take care of the child and then went to cook for him. In the past, Xia Xiaoman didn't do any household chores. Hence, one could imagine how good the food she cooked was. Chu Xiaoran ate 2 mouthfuls and stopped eating. He ate something that was either noodles or paste. Living in a cramped house, Chu Xiaoran's heart was filled with anger. When he slept at night, the child would constantly cry, causing Chu Xiaoran to feel extremely vexed. Crying, 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 wailing. Chu Xiaoran got up from the bed and went to the balcony to smoke. Frightened by Chu Xiaoran's voice, the child in the cradle cried even more ferociously. Xia Xiaoman's heart trembled when she saw that Chu Xiaoran was angry. She hurriedly hugged the child in her arms and coaxed him. Even though Chu Xiaoran was now in dire straits, Xia Xiaoman still gave in to him unconditionally because of the power he had accumulated over a long time. Chu Xiaoran was very anxious. He was eager to prove himself and stand up again. In the past, things that were easy in his eyes were now extremely difficult. He was chased out before he could even speak. The embarrassment and anger made Chu Xiaoran want to kill someone. The more it was like this, the more Chu Xiaoran wanted to return to the past and make these people who looked down on him regret and feel uneasy. Chapter 531. Ning Shu had been paying attention to Chu Xiaoran. He knew that Chu Xiaoran had sold his only villa and was preparing to start afresh with the money. Ning Shu could only say that he was a little naive. Chu Xiaoran was registered in front of the authorities. Basically, no one in T-City dared to cooperate with Chu Xiaoran. Even if they wanted to cooperate, what capital did Chu Xiaoran have? Now that Chu Xiaoran was no longer a business giant, other companies were scrambling to cooperate with him. Tea cools down when people leave. That was the reality. However, Chu Xiaoran was tenacious and seemed to be determined to succeed. Ning Shu felt that Chu Xiaoran could jump up and down because he had money in his hands. Without this money, he probably wouldn't be able to jump up and down. However, before Ning Shu could make a move, the person Ning Shu sent to monitor Chu Xiaoran told Ning Shu that Chu Xiaoran had already found a business partner. So fast. Ning Shu was a little surprised. Could it be that Chu Xiaoran was going to rise? However, news soon came that there was a new energy development project. It seemed to be very promising, and the company that cooperated with Chu Xiaoran was also very legitimate. Ning Shu sent someone to investigate, only to find that it was just a shell company. Even the office was rented and only had the name of the company hanging on it. It seemed that they were eyeing the money in Chu Xiaoran's hands. Moreover, the plan was very thorough. It seemed that Chu Xiaoran had already taken the bait. Both parties had already signed the contract and Chu Xiaoran had invested half of his money. Ning Shu just watched without saying anything. He didn't think of reminding Chu Xiaoran. Chu Xiaoran must have gone out to look for business opportunities and let slip that he had money. Then, the swindler came up with such a plan. Chu Xiaoran had only invested half of his money. The swindler would think of ways to take all his money. Chu Xiaoran was a businessman, but ever since he was released from prison, he had been in a very irritable state, causing him to lose his basic calmness and rationality. In addition, the swindler did things very formally and considered all aspects. One could find this company on the internet. Moreover, it was registered with the Industry and Commerce Bureau. Only then did Chu Xiaoran agree to cooperate. Ning Shu watched from the side, as if he was watching a big show. She naturally contributed to Chu Xiaoran's difficult situation after he was released from prison. With her current social status, it was simply too easy for her to make things difficult for Chu Xiaoran. Now, the situation between her and Chu Xiaoran was completely reversed. She watched coldly as Chu Xiaoran struggled bitterly. The high and mighty Chu Xiaoran would never have thought that he would have such a day. Very soon, the swindler informed Chu Xiaoran that he did not have enough funds and wanted to stop the project. The money that Chu Xiaoran had invested previously would be wasted. Chu Xiaoran gritted his teeth and invested all the money he had. However, the next day, Chu Xiaoran was faced with an empty company. The technical staff had also disappeared. Not a single one of them was left. Chu Xiaoran immediately realized that he had been deceived. At this moment, Chu Xiaoran's body went limp, as if his soul was about to leave his body. This sum of money was all Chu Xiaoran's hope, but now, he had nothing left. In fact, he could not even guarantee his future life. The family of 3 could only wait for dinner. Chu Xiaoran was too greedy. He wanted to make a fortune with the money he had and was eager to make a comeback. At that time, he had only invested half of the money. If he could stop the losses immediately, he would still have at least half of the money in his hands. Now, Chu Xiaoran could be said to be completely disheartened. In fact, he even wanted to die in an instant. However, when he really stood on a tall building and looked down from above, he felt dizzy and timid. He no longer had the courage to die. The depressed Chu Xiaoran drank until he was dead drunk. When he returned home and heard his child crying, the volcano in his heart erupted. He then beat the innocent Xia Xiaoran up. Chu Xiaoran wanted to vent the grievances in his heart. Hence, he hit Xia Xiaoran very hard, causing her face to be bruised and swollen. The drunk Chu Xiaoran vented his tyrannical mood on Xia Xiaoran, who could only bear with it silently. The next day, when Chu Xiaoran sobered up and saw the unsightly Xia Xiaoran, he knelt in front of her and begged for forgiveness. He kept saying sorry to Xia Xiaoran. It was because he was too depressed in his heart that he tried his best to get up and give his mother and daughter a happy family. Xia Xiaoran had never seen Chu Xiaoran in such a sorry state. She hugged Chu Xiaoran and forgave him without saying a word. Without money, Chu Xiaoran felt weak all over. He stayed at home and did not go anywhere. Xia Xiaoran would send him 3 meals a day. He did not care about his appearance and did not even bother to shave his beard. He was extremely dispirited and obviously had not recovered from the shock of being deceived. Chu Xiaoran could no longer be found in the current him. Chu Xiaoran stayed at home all day and did nothing. However, he needed to spend money on his child's milk powder, diapers, rent, utilities, food, and clothing. Xia Xiaoran originally wanted to reach out and ask Chu Xiaoran for money, but she remembered that Chu Xiaoran had just been cheated of some money some time ago. Chu Xiaoran would feel uncomfortable if she mentioned money to him. The pressure of survival was all on Xia Xiaoran. Xia Xiaoran, who had never worked before, had to work to earn money. People like Xia Xiaoran were not suitable for work at all. Many companies did not want Xia Xiaoran, although she had a university degree. On one hand, Xia Xiaoran was considered a well-known figure in Tea City because she was once the girlfriend of Tea City's Prince Charming Chu Xiaoran. On the other hand, Xia Xiaoran always looked lost and helpless. It was obvious that she did not have the ability to work. In the end, Xia Xiaoran washed dishes in a small restaurant and even clumsily broke a plate. When she received her salary, she still had to pay for the broken plate. She did not receive much money at all. After washing dishes non-stop for a day, her waist was about to break. Her hands were wrinkled from soaking in water. When she returned home, the child wailed loudly. Chu Xiaoran sat on the sofa and watched television. He did not even think of hugging his child. After coaxing the child, Xia Xiaoran busied herself with cooking. After a day, Xia Xiaoran's face turned pale. When she slept, her waist hurt so much that she could not turn over. When the child made a fuss in the middle of the night, she still had to get up to coax him. Even so, Xia Xiaoran still did not say a word to Chu Xiaoran. The next morning, she woke up and prepared breakfast. She fed the child until he was full and changed his diapers before leaving. Chu Xiaoran was still sleeping in bed. Chu Xiaoran, who had nothing to do, felt frustrated. Hence, he drowned his sorrows in alcohol and began to drink. The drunk Chu Xiaoran would always hit Xia Xiaoran uncontrollably. In the past, Chu Xiaoran used to treat Xia Xiaoran coldly, but now, it had developed to the point of punching and kicking. Chu Xiaoran, who had fallen from a high position and was frustrated, could only find a sense of existence in Xia Xiaoran. After sobering up, Chu Xiaoran confessed to Xia Xiaoran. He promised time and time again that there would be no next time. However, the drunk Chu Xiaoran could not remember anything. Such venting was addictive. Xia Xiaoran's forgiveness time and time again made Chu Xiaoran unscrupulously. He even felt that it was natural. Chapter 532. Ning Shu knew that when Xia Xiaoman went out to work, the family of 3 depended on her for food while Chu Xiaoran did nothing. Not only that, he even drank and hit people when he was drunk. However, Xia Xiaoman still had no regrets. Ning Shu was dumbfounded. His outlook on life was refreshed again. How much tolerance does Xia Xiaoman have to live such a life? She still treats Chu Xiaoran like a treasure. She's in the late stages of Stockholm Syndrome. He felt that Xia Xiaoman was the kind of person who could still live happily with Chu Xiaoran even after Chu Xiaoran raped her mother, raped her father, and didn't even let off the chihuahua at home. Su Wenlang treated Xia Xiaoman very well, but Xia Xiaoman couldn't feel love. Instead, Chu Xiaoran kept hurting her, but she felt that it was love. There was something wrong with his outlook on love. He didn't even have the basic respect and love. What kind of love was this? As long as Chu Xiaoran behaved a little better, Xia Xiaoman would take a step back. Xia Xiaoman was in a weak position, and she was the one who put herself in a weak position. Ning Shu only asked people to continue paying attention to them. He didn't plan to care about them at all. He looked down at the two of them who were struggling to survive and suffering. In the plot, they were tortured and ended up together happily. That was because they had the support of money. Now that they didn't have the capital to torture others, they would only be tortured by life. Ning Shu went to court to file a lawsuit when he had nothing to do. He would also take some time to walk around and relax. Occasionally, he would listen to the things between Chu Xiaoran and Xia Xiaoman. It seemed that Chu Xiaoran was now addicted to gambling and wanted to become rich through gambling. Every time, he would take away the money at home. That money was the money that Xia Xiaoman painstakingly earned for her children. Chu Xiaoran, who started stealing money, felt a little guilty. He told Xia Xiaoman that he would definitely win a lot of money back and didn't want to see her suffer so much. Xia Xiaoman didn't say anything and had no choice but to work harder. Wasn't Xia Xiaoman tired? She was very tired, but Xia Xiaoman only wanted to have someone to rely on. Even if it was a little tiring, she definitely wouldn't be able to hang on if she was alone. Xia Xiaoman was a person who was very afraid of loneliness. She had no independent mentality and Chu Xiaoran was her psychological support. Even if Chu Xiaoran was in a bad state now, Xia Xiaoman was still afraid that he would leave her. Chu Xiaoran did not take care of his family or his children. He was addicted to gambling all day long. He wanted to rely on gambling to win a lot of money so that he could return to the past. Gambling had always been a bottomless pit. Even if one threw in a lot of money, they might not be able to win back a lot of money. Chu Xiaoran, who had lost money, could only take money from his family and gamble day and night. He became very irritable and often asked Xia Xiaoman for money. If Xia Xiaoman didn't give it to him, he would beat Xia Xiaoman up as if she was his enemy. He even yelled why Xia Xiaoman didn't sell it. Xia Xiaoman's heart was hurt. Chu Xiaoran had asked her to sell herself as a prostitute, which had completely hurt her. However, she was beaten up by Chu Xiaoran as soon as she refuted him. Xia Xiaoman often had new wounds added to her old ones. However, Xia Xiaoman still endured it silently because if she said a word of objection, Chu Xiaoran would storm her. Without money and power, Chu Xiaoran was even more of a scumbag. In the past, the scumbag had money and good looks, so it was normal for him to be a little willful. Now, Xia Xiaoman could no longer afford the rent. She could only move to a small house that cost 200 to 300 yuan a month. However, there was only one room, and she had to eat, drink, and defecate in one room. She was surrounded by rented houses and migrant workers who left early and returned late. "Boss, there's a woman called Xia Xiaoman at the door looking for you." Ning Shu was looking at a document when his secretary walked in and said to Ning Shu. Ning Shu raised his eyebrows. "Why is Xia Xiaoman looking for me?" Xia Xiaoman has not interacted with Chu Xiaoran since he went to prison. It has been almost 2 years since then. Ning Shu walked to the window and saw Xia Xiaoman standing at the door. She was wearing simple clothes that were resistant to dirt. Xia Xiaoman was very thin, and it was shocking to see her. Ning Shu felt something in his heart and an inexplicable emotion flowed out. This should be the emotion of the original owner. Call her in. Ning Shu still had some things to ask Xia Xiaoman. The secretary brought Xia Xiaoman in. Xia Xiaoman looked a little reserved. When she met Ning Shu's gaze, she quickly lowered her head. Ning Shu saw the dark circles under Xia Xiaoman's eyes. She was obviously beaten by Chu Xiaoran. Have a seat. Ning Shu said indifferently. Xia Xiaoman sat on the sofa trembling. Ning Shu asked again, what do you want to drink? No, no, no. Xia Xiaoman hurriedly waved her hand, looking very flustered. The cruel life had destroyed Xia Xiaoman into a timid and humble woman. Ning Shu saw that her hands were very rough, and there were some small wounds. She was wearing very cheap flat rubber shoes. Although Xia Xiaoman was simple in the past, she was still very beautiful when she tidied herself up. She would never leave her high heels behind when she went out. The heavy pressure of life made Xia Xiaoman have no money and no time to tidy herself up. When survival became a problem, living was the most important thing. Ning Shu looked at Xia Xiaoman. Her skin had become rough and darker than before, but her lips were pale without any color. She was anemic and malnourished. There was even a black aura between her eyebrows. Xia Xiaoman's body was seriously overdrawn, and she might even die young. Ning Shu felt very stifled. Why didn't women love themselves more? Why couldn't they leave men? Xia Xiaoman's various actions made Ning Shu hate her very much, but she herself was addicted to it. When Xia Xiaoman saw Ning Shu staring at her, she could only lower her head and pinch the corner of her clothes with her hands uneasily. She didn't even have the courage to look at Ning Shu. The man was wearing a straight suit, and his handsome appearance set her off into the mud. Xia Xiaoman's heart was full of feelings, and she was very impetuous. Is it worth it? Ning Shu asked. A woman could humiliate herself like this. Xia Xiaoman raised her head and looked at Ning Shu, then lowered her head and whispered, Brother Wenlang, I can't go back. Because there was no hope, she simply saved her strength and was too lazy to struggle. Just like that. Now Xia Xiaoman was less than 30 years old, but her face looked like she was almost 40 years old. She was dark and thin, and her whole body was tired. It was a good time for a woman to go shopping and drink coffee with her best friend in beautiful high heels. Xia Xiaoman's miserable life was completely caused by herself. Perhaps she didn't feel how miserable she was. She was with the man she loved, and they had a child. It was a perfect family. Ning Shu originally wanted to ask Xia Xiaoman if she regretted it for Su Wenlang, but it was obviously unnecessary. Chapter 533. Why are you looking for me? Ning Shu said faintly. They had not contacted each other for a long time. Why did Xia Xiaoman suddenly come to him? Xia Xiaoman's face was a little red, which made her face dark red. The sunburn on her face became obvious. Xia Xiaoman pinched the corner of her clothes tightly, looking embarrassed. Ning Shu didn't rush her. She asked her secretary to pour 2 glasses of water. Xia Xiaoman wiped her hands on her clothes, picked up the glass and drank the water. Ning Shu asked his secretary to pour more water. Xia Xiaoman hurriedly waved her hand. Thank you, Brother Wenlang. I'm not thirsty. Brother Wenlang, I. Xia Xiaoman opened her mouth but did not say anything in the end. Xia Xiaoman really could not open her mouth. She came to Ning Shu because she was forced by Chu Xiaoran. It was hard to imagine that Chu Xiaoran forced her to come. In the past, whenever she mentioned Su Wenlang's name, Chu Xiaoran would be very angry. But now, he asked her to come to Su Wenlang because Su Wenlang was rich. Chu Xiaoran often saw Ning Shu on TV, and Ning Shu was already the ambassador of Tea City. There was a public service advertisement that was often broadcast on TV. Chu Xiaoran hated Ning Shu. His eyes were red as he looked at his enemy who was infinitely famous. However, he had an idea in his heart. He wanted Xia Xiaoman to ask Ning Shu for money. Now, Chu Xiaoran did not mind his woman going to Su Wenlang at all. He no longer had any money to gamble. Since he could ask Xia Xiaoman to sell herself, it was obvious that Chu Xiaoran was only treating Xia Xiaoman as a money-making tool. Even if Xia Xiaoman really slept with Su Wenlang, he would be able to get money from Su Wenlang. With Su Wenlang's weakness in his hands, he could get more money from Su Wenlang in the future. Under the threat of Chu Xiaoran's fists, Xia Xiaoman came to Ning Shu. However, facing the person who almost became her life partner, Xia Xiaoman only felt embarrassed. She did not want to appear in front of Brother Wenlang in such a sorry state. "Brother Wenlang, I'll leave first." Xia Xiaoman suddenly stood up and hurriedly left. Ning Shu raised her eyebrows. Xia Xiaoman had come to tell her something, but she left without saying anything. The person who was keeping an eye on Chu Xiaoran told him that Chu Xiaoran had sent Xia Xiaoman to ask her for money. Ning Shu was instantly speechless. The current Chu Xiaoran was really disgusting. Chu Xiaoran had always been so despicable. Otherwise, he wouldn't have done such a thing. When Xia Xiaoman returned empty-handed, she naturally had to face Chu Xiaoran's fury. Chu Xiaoran originally expected Xia Xiaoman to bring back 2 stacks of money, but she didn't even get a single coin. In addition, Xia Xiaoman said that she would never ask Brother Wenlang for money, which angered Chu Xiaoran. Chu Xiaoran grabbed Xia Xiaoman's hair and slammed her against the wall, looking as if she was his enemy. Xia Xiaoman's face was covered in blood and she fainted. Chu Xiaoran immediately panicked. He sent Xia Xiaoman to the hospital. Xia Xiaoman relied on Chu Xiaoran, but Chu Xiaoran also relied on Xia Xiaoman. Without Xia Xiaoman, he couldn't survive. He had no food to eat and no money to gamble. When Xia Xiaoman was sent to the hospital, the doctor said that she had a concussion. However, the hospitalization fee was quite high. Chu Xiaoran scrounged up enough money at home. After paying the hospitalization fee, he was out of money and brought Xia Xiaoman home. Xia Xiaoman ignored her this time. Her mind was filled with Brother Wenlang's question, "Is it worth it?" Xia Xiaoman didn't know if it was worth it. Chu Xiaoran probably felt that he was in the wrong, so he treated Xia Xiaoman much better this time. He even cooked for Xia Xiaoman and fed her mouthfuls of food. Xia Xiaoman's heart was numb and she didn't know what to feel. After Xia Xiaoman recovered, she started to work again. Moreover, she was carrying the child on her back when she was working. Now that the child could crawl, it would cause problems if she left him at home. Chu Xiaoran sat at the gambling table all day and didn't care about anything. Ning Shu felt that Ning Chu and Xiao Ran were living too comfortably now, which was why they thought of using her as their target. Ning Shu directly found someone to cripple one of Chu Xiaoran's fingers. Chu Xiaoran's little finger was chopped off in the casino. Chu Xiaoran used to run an underground gambling den, so he should be very clear about the twists and turns in it. It was impossible to make a fortune by relying on gambling. Chu Xiaoran probably knew in his heart, but he had to vent his frustrations. Besides, gambling was addictive. Once he walked on this path of no return. Chu Xiaoran was sent to the hospital. Xia Xiaoman tried her best to collect enough money to reattach Chu Xiaoran's finger, but it required too much money. Xia Xiaoman couldn't afford it and couldn't do anything about it. For Chu Xiaoran, Xia Xiaoman put down the last bit of dignity in her heart and came to Ning Shu to beg. However, she was told that Ning Shu wasn't there. Xia Xiaoman was burning with anxiety. She waited at the door, but Ning Shu didn't come out. At this time, Ning Shu had already gone to the countryside to spread his knowledge of the law. In the end, Chu Xiaoran's finger couldn't be reconnected and he became a disabled person. Knowing that his finger was gone, Chu Xiaoran was furious. He vented all his emotions on Xia Xiaoman and beat her up until she was sent to the hospital. The two of them were lying in the hospital. They had no money and were driven out of the hospital the next day. In the end, the two injured people could only help each other home. Ning Shu knew about these things, but she just smiled faintly. Supporting each other like this was also true love. Ding, do you want to leave the mission world? 2333's voice appeared in Ning Shu's mind. Leave. He had stayed in this world for a long time, about 5 years. This was the first time he had stayed in this world for so long. He had to leave. Mother Su was very irritable now. Her son didn't want to get married and was almost never at home. When she asked him to go on blind dates, he would run far away. Today, he was in the city. Tomorrow, he would run to the mountains. Mother Su originally thought that she was already very irritable due to menopause. Her son's marriage made her even more irritable. Ning Shu couldn't do anything to Mother Su. This kind of thing had to wait for the original owner to come back and deal with. Ning Shu's head became dizzy. When he opened his eyes, he was already in the system space. Ning Shu didn't care about anything and just lay on the bed to sleep. This mission was really too tiring. It was really not easy to fight with the rich and powerful Chu Xiaoran. He didn't know how long he slept, but he was finally full. When Ning Shu woke up, he saw that his soul was a little dim. Obviously, staying in the mission world for too long had hurt Ning Shu. Ning Shu sat on the ground and began to cultivate. When his soul was full, Ning Shu stretched and asked 2333, "Why did I become a man again? Didn't you say that you fixed the system last time? Why are you always so hung up on this? Men and women are just shells. They are all fake. Why do you have to be so hung up on it?" 2333 said with some dissatisfaction. Ning Shu stared blankly at him, speechless. "You still have a reason." Chapter 534. Ning Shu gave up on talking about life with 2333. It was just a stupid system. Let's look at the points this time. Ning Shu was looking forward to the points this time. After all, she had helped Su Wenlang find a new life and become a famous lawyer with a law firm. Number 23333 Name, Ning Shu, Beginner Mission Taker, Age, 27 points, 550-000/1000000 Soul, 300 HP, 71 Wisdom, 140 Charm, 3 Luck, 67 MP, 120 Faith, 1415 Aptitude, 39 Strength, 92 Merit, 36 Skills, 5th Ring Shooting Technique, Trash Fighting Technique, Beginner Martial Arts, Beginner Business Management Knowledge, Beginner Code Programming, Beginner Lawyer Skills Honorary Title, Goddess of War, Selfless Ancestor Aura, Mother of the World, Queen's Blessing, Sister Model Worker, Chen Shi's Blessing, Leader. Aura, Grass Blessing, Best Friend for Life, Miao Miao Miao's Blessing, Fulfill Su Wenlang's Wish, Revenge on Chu Xiaoran. Mission Completion, 100. Reward, 1,000,000 points, 50 Attribute points, 15 Faith points. Ning Shu, oh, Ning Shu was stunned. 1,000,000 points, 50 Attribute points. It was an unprecedented amount of points. Ning Shu even suspected that she had seen wrongly. Is there a mistake? Ning Shu asked 2333. He felt that it was too unreal. 2333's voice was a little surprised. What did you do to get so many points? Ning Shu, damn, I want to beat the shit out of 2333. Ning Shu suddenly felt that 300,000 points was not that expensive. He could earn it back with just one mission. Such a high number of points should be because Su Wenlang won a respectable position in society and escaped the tragic fate of dying young. Ning Shu's entire body felt refreshed, and she happily jumped on the spot. Then, she coughed and said, "Aya, how should I distribute 50 attribute points? I've never had so many attribute points before." "Show off." 2333 murmured. Then, he continued to advise Ning Shu, add 1 point to your luck. Luck is a mysterious thing. If you encounter a treasure, you might not be able to get it. You might just watch it slip away in front of your eyes. Ning Shu listened to 2333's advice and put his attribute points into intelligence, luck, and force. With so many points, Ning Shu felt like a nouveau riche. The attribute panel began to change. Serial number, 23333 Name, Ning Shu, Primary Mission Enforcer, Age, 27 points, 1, 550, 000 Soul Value, 300 HP, 71 Wisdom, 14030 Charm, 3 Luck, 3410 Spiritual Power, 120 Faith, 19 Aptitude, 39 Combat Power, 9, 210 Merit, 36 Skills, 5th Ring Shooting Technique, Trash Fighting Technique, Entry to Unique Martial Arts, Elementary Business Management Knowledge, Elementary Code Programming, Elementary Lawyer Skills. Honorary Title, Goddess of War, Selfless Ancestor Aura, Mother of the World, Queen's Blessing, Model Worker, Qin Shi's Blessing, Leader Aura, Grass Blessing, Best Friend for Life, Meow Meow Meow's Blessing. This time, the high points made Ning Shu very happy. He felt that he had found the right direction and that the consultant did not lie to him. It was to treat the mission enforcer's life as your own and strive for a brilliant life. Fame, status, money, power, as long as you achieve one, it would be a successful life. Ning Shu calmed himself down and prepared to go to the virtual space. Although he could not afford to buy anything, it was good to broaden his horizons. Last time, he saw the school doctor. Ning Shu wanted to try his luck and see if he could meet the school doctor again. 2333 was really a piece of trash. He did not know anything when you asked him. After a moment of weightlessness, Ning Shu found himself standing on the quaint street. Ning Shu first went to the consultation room to thank the silver-haired man. But when he reached the door, Ning Shu stopped. It was better not to go in. She would be speechless if he asked her for points after saying a few words. Ning Shu turned around and left. He was going to the restaurant to eat something to satisfy his appetite. Ning Shu liked this kind of lively place where he could hear a lot of gossip. With so many mission enforcers gathered together, he could always hear some more important information. Ning Shu ordered some dishes and listened to the gossip of the people around him. In fact, Ning Shu wanted to know about the school doctor. Originally, Ning Shu only thought that the school doctor was a little badass, a little evil, a little misophobic, and a little abstinent. But after seeing the school doctor in the virtual space, Ning Shu felt that the school doctor was even more evil. For some reason, he felt that the school doctor's evil aura was even stronger. He was a little scared. Ning Shu gnawed on a drumstick while listening to other people's conversations. After listening for a long time, he did not hear anything about the school doctor. Was he hallucinating when he saw the school doctor? The school doctor who appeared and disappeared like a ghost. Ning Shu was too lazy to care about the school doctor. He ate a table full of dishes, paid the bill, and wandered around the virtual space. Ning Shu saw a pet shop. Pet shop. There were pets here. Ning Shu walked in. The shop was full of cages with all kinds of pets. There were cats, dogs, and some animals that Ning Shu did not recognize. They were probably products of other dimensions. Ning Shu saw a husky. This husky was lying on the ground with its long tongue hanging by the side of its mouth. It had an expression that said, "What are you looking at?" Ning Shu wandered around. He wanted to buy one back, but he remembered that he was doing missions most of the time. It was not good to leave a pet in the system space where time did not pass. The system space was very quiet. Staying in the system space for too long was actually not good for one's mentality. Ning Shu gave up on buying a pet. After wandering around for a while, Ning Shu decided to go back. 2333, let's go back. After a moment of weightlessness, he returned to the system space. Ning Shu took a book from the bookshelf and started reading. He planned to finish reading a book before doing a mission. He could always finish all the books on the bookshelf. After an unknown amount of time, Ning Shu finally finished reading a book. It was probably because his IQ attribute points had increased. Ning Shu felt that the things he read were engraved in his mind. Yes, Ning Shu's goal was to turn his brain into a library and become a woman who read books and poems. A beautiful woman with a heart full of literature and a mind as deep as a valley. Oh, he. Charm was not important. What was important was temperament. Ning Shu watered the potted plant again. Then, he slowly opened the exchange shop. As usual, he exchanged for fasting pills, water, medicine, fake death medicine, and realgar powder. After browsing the shop for a while, Ning Shu resisted the urge to chop off his hands. He now had 5 million points. He only needed 5 million more to become an intermediate mission taker. Chapter 535. Ning Shu's current goal was to become an intermediate task enforcer. This way, he would be able to choose his own missions and talk to the person who commissioned him face to face. He would be able to understand what the person wanted and complete the mission better. Most importantly, he would be able to bargain. Awesome. He estimated that he would be able to become an intermediate task enforcer after completing 3 more missions. Ning Shu now wanted to save his points to become an intermediate task enforcer. He felt that he would only have a little say after becoming an intermediate task enforcer. He would be able to choose the missions he wanted to do. 2333, let's do the mission, Ning Shu said. This time, you cannot become a man. Let me tell you, before Ning Shu could finish his sentence, he felt dizzy. Damn, 2333, this idiot. He felt that his soul was merging with a body. A female voice sounded beside his ear, but this female voice was slightly hoarse. Your Majesty, it's time to leave the bed. Ning Shu was still feeling a little uncomfortable, but when he heard the name, Your Majesty, he suddenly opened his eyes and quickly touched his lower body. Phew, luckily, it was a woman. Your Majesty. It was the Empress. Seeing Ning Shu's lifeless eyes, the female official beside her said, Your Majesty, it's time to go to court. Ning Shu had not accepted the plot and was still at a loss. The woman beside his ear kept talking, so Ning Shu could only get up. Another large group of servants came in and helped Ning Shu change his clothes. A cup of water was placed in front of Ning Shu's mouth. Ning Shu lowered her head and took a sip, swallowing it down with a gulp. Your Majesty, please rinse your mouth. The female official beside her saw Ning Shu drinking the water and quickly said. Ning Shu was speechless. Why didn't she say that this was mouthwash earlier? Ning Shu's expression did not change as he drank another mouthful and rinsed his mouth. A palace servant held a spittoon and Ning Shu spat out the water in his mouth. His days were really extravagant. He stretched out his hand for clothes and opened his mouth for food. The palace servants then combed Ning Shu's hair. They combed it into an extremely complicated bun and then inserted all kinds of luxurious hairpins into it. It was incomparably luxurious. Ning Shu felt that his neck was about to be twisted. He didn't dare to move. Surrounded by a group of people, Ning Shu, who didn't know anything, arrived at the place where the imperial court was to be held. Suddenly, a loud voice shouted beside him, Her Majesty the Empress has arrived. All officials kneel to welcome her. Ning Shu was startled by the female official's voice. Then, he slowly walked over and sat on the dragon throne. Seeing so many people kneeling below, he stood up and said in a clear voice, Rise. Ning Shu wanted to sit down, but when he saw all the women below, he was surprised. Could it be womanland? Ning Shu coughed and said, If you have something to say, just say it. I have a headache. Just as Ning Shu's voice fell, a woman wearing light green clothes and a gem between her eyebrows made her look refreshing and feminine. Her eyes were filled with worry for Ning Shu. She asked, "Mother Empress, are you okay? Why do you have a headache?" "Mother Empress?" Ning Shu looked at this young girl. She was about 15 or 16 years old. With such a big child, the original owner of this body shouldn't be young. Ning Shu didn't know who this girl was. He only said, "I just haven't rested well." The girl said, "Oh. Mother Empress, do you need an imperial physician to take a look?" Another woman wearing bright yellow clothes asked. Ning Shu originally didn't have a headache, but this time, it really hurt. He didn't accept the plot and was stunned. The female official at the side saw that Ning Shu's expression was somewhat impatient. She quickly shouted, "If there's something to report, the imperial court is dismissed." Every time he heard this female official speak, Ning Shu felt that his ears couldn't stand it. Fortunately, these people were more tactful. They didn't say anything and left the imperial court. Returning to the palace, Ning Shu said to the female official beside him, "I will rest for a while. Don't come in and disturb me." "Yes." Ning Shu laid on the chaise lounge and began to accept the plot. This was a time where women were respected. Men's status was lower. It was a world where men were superior and women were inferior. Women were able to support their families. Only women could become officials in the imperial court. The country was managed by women. The women here were treated like beasts, and the men were married to the women. The original owner of this body was called Mu Nishang. She was the empress of Xian country. She looked like she was in her 30s. The original owner of this body was a mediocre emperor. She didn't have any great talents and didn't have any great achievements. However, she was still a qualified emperor. She only wanted to peacefully live out her life as an emperor and hand over the country to a suitable successor. But in terms of the successor, Mu Nishang ruined Xian country. Originally, Xian country already had a crown princess. It was the woman in the bright yellow dress in the imperial court. However, Mu Nishang doted on the fourth princess. She even abolished the crown princess for the sake of the fourth princess and supported the fourth princess. The fourth princess didn't notice Mu Nishang's painstaking efforts. In fact, this fourth princess was a soft and cute girl. The real fourth princess was a cruel and lustful person. She was killed by her own husband and the soft and cute girl transmigrated. In this world where women were respected, the soft and cute girl knew how to act coquettishly and blush. She also knew how to act cute. She also inherited the beauty of the imperial family and attracted the attention of all kinds of men. This was actually a story of a girl who attracted love everywhere. She fell in love with all kinds of men. The cute girl was indeed kind-hearted and treated Mu Nishang well. She treated Mu Nishang as her real mother. It was easy to tell if people were sincere or hypocritical when interacting with each other. Moreover, Mu Nishang had been the empress for many years. The fourth princess's care for Mu Nishang was sincere. Mu Nishang protected her daughter openly and secretly. It was inevitable that she would spoil her a little. The empress didn't like her position being coveted by others. Mu Nishang even tested the fourth princess a few times, saying that she wanted to pass the throne to the fourth princess. However, the fourth princess didn't agree. Moreover, the fourth princess disliked the throne. The fourth princess wanted to be a carefree prince and play everywhere. Being the empress meant being trapped in the palace. People were like this. If you insist on snatching, I won't give it to you. If you don't want it, I will give it to you. In the end, the throne was still in the hands of the fourth princess. The fourth princess was a soft and gentle girl. How could she handle the affairs of the imperial court? She was completely clueless. Even when Mu Nishang taught her how to rule the country, she was still sloppy. After ascending the throne, the fourth princess's official husband was in charge of handling the affairs of the imperial court. This fourth princess was the son of the prime minister. He was very knowledgeable. After the fourth princess gave birth to his son, he taught his son how to rule the country step by step. When his son was able to take charge, the fourth princess told the fourth princess to let her son be the emperor. Then, the group of them would go sightseeing. The fourth princess was naturally willing. She didn't have any objections to a man being the emperor. After all, in her time and space, it was always men who were the emperors. Then, the fourth princess brought her 3 husbands and 4 attendants to sightsee. She enjoyed the happiness of having multiple men and occasionally came back to see her son. Then, the country became the Yuan families. It was still a man who was the emperor. The status of men and women slowly shifted. Chapter 536. In fact, in the hundreds of years that the Mu family ruled Xian country, male chauvinism had begun to sprout. That is, men were no longer satisfied with staying at home and being controlled by women. Men's male hormones had always been full of plunder and invasion. Even if the men of today acted coquettishly and put on makeup, the desire for power lurked in their bones. Huang Siku's personality was very attractive to men. Her personality was different from the strong women of this era. The men who could follow Huang Siku all loved her very much. Even if the mother had ambitions in her heart, she still wanted her son to become the emperor so that she could play with her beloved. If she did not love Huang Siku, she would have become the emperor. Huang Siku was a girl worthy of deep love. She was sincere to people. She was a little silly and simple-minded, but she was lovable. The original owner's wish was to protect Xian country and not let the lowly men control it. She did not want Huang Siku to become the empress, but she hoped that Huang Siku would be safe. Mu Nishang did not have any hatred for Huang Siku. After all, it was her own love for Huang Siku that blinded her and gave the people around Huang Siku an opportunity. After Ning Shu accepted the plot, he felt that this task was relatively simple. Huang Siku did not want to be the emperor. The country already had a crown prince, so the country could be handed over to the crown princess. Ning Shu felt that this task was not difficult. The only difficulty was that she had never been the emperor. So now she had to learn how to deal with court affairs and be a qualified emperor. Your Majesty, Her Highness Huang Siku is waiting for Your Majesty at the door. I said that Your Majesty was resting, but Her Highness Huang Siku said that she would wait until Your Majesty woke up. The female official saw that Ning Shu had woken up and came over to inform Ning Shu. Ning Shu nodded. Let her in. Huang Si-nu walked in and bowed towards Ning Shu. She was still wearing the light green robes that she wore to the morning court. It seemed that she had not returned to the Fu at all and had come here to wait after the morning court. Just this gesture made Ning Shu's heart feel warm. No wonder Mu Nishang loved this girl so much. Even if the country was ruined, she did not blame her. Imperial Mother, how is your body? Have you called the Imperial physician? Did you not sleep well last night? Imperial Mother, you should walk more. Don't stay in the hall all the time. Go out and take in some fresh air. Imperial Mother, why don't you learn yoga from your son? It can help you shape your body, exercise your body, and release pressure. It's only comfortable when you sweat all over, Imperial Mother. Mu Yao was a chatterbox. Ning Shu's ears were filled with Mu Yao's chattering. The corners of Ning Shu's mouth held a smile as he waited for her to speak. After Mu Yao finished speaking, she looked at Ning Shu with clear eyes. Imperial Mother, what do you think? Ning Shu was speechless. Ning Shu stiffly changed the topic. I heard that the servants in your inner courtyard are causing trouble again recently. Men should be disciplined more, don't spoil them all the time. Mu Yao's face reddened. She shook Ning Shu's arm and said coquettishly, your son knows that they have no ill intentions. If they had no ill intentions, how could they have caused Mu Yao's death? Now that they sensed that Mu Yao had changed, each and every one of them had taken a fancy to her. However, they just had to put on a tsundere appearance and try their best to seduce her. Even the guards that Mu Nishang had sent to Mu Yao fell in love with her. The main thing was that Mu Yao was really too different. Even the son of the prime minister and the son of the minister who had his eyes above his head treated Mu Yao differently. Imperial mother, your son will give you a massage. Your head will feel better. Mu Yao did not wait for Ning Shu's reply. She reached out to press on Ning Shu's temples and gently massaged around his eyes. Needless to say, Mu Yao's massage technique was really not bad. Ning Shu felt very comfortable. Yao, you're a noble daughter of the imperial family. You have to show a bit of dignity, understand? Ning Shu said with his eyes closed. Mu Yao was a soft and cute girl. Your son understands, Mu Yao said obediently. However, when faced with so many men, she had a feeling of being unable to straighten her back. Ning Shu did not really mind. Mu Yao's character was like this, and it could not be changed. Ning Shu had Mu Yao stay for breakfast, but during breakfast, Mu Yao was somewhat absent-minded. Ning Shu saw her like this and had her leave. Mu Yao bowed to Ning Shu, then ran back to her estate as if her butt was on fire. The beautiful men in the estate had made breakfast for her. If she returned late, they would throw a tantrum with her again. Mu Yao was different from the female chauvinism of this world. She was very good to the male servants in the inner courtyard. Mu Yao was a good woman. After breakfast, Ning Shu began to review the memorials. Although he had the original owner's memories, Ning Shu stared at these memorials for a long time before his mind wandered. Because these memorials were rambling for a long time, he did not know what to say. After a long string of words, he finally got to the main topic. Being an emperor was so difficult because of the people below. Moreover, there was not a single punctuation mark in the entire memorial. When Ning Shu silently read a sentence, he was already on the verge of death. He completely did not know where to stop the sentence. What a headache. Ning Shu read 2 memorials with difficulty. His head was dizzy and he closed the memorial. The female official Ning Shu said, Your Majesty, the Phoenix Empress heard that Your Majesty was not feeling well and made a tonic soup. Phoenix. Phoenix Empress. Ning Shu immediately felt as if he was struck by lightning. Previously, he only felt that this mission was simple. However, he neglected the fact that Mu Nishang was an emperor. She had 3 palaces and 6 courtyards in the imperial harem and so many male concubines. Ning Shu felt dizzy. Ning Shu's mouth twitched. Did she have to pamper the men in the imperial harem? Her kidneys would be weak. The female official waited for Ning Shu's reply. Ning Shu rubbed his forehead and said, Let the Phoenix Empress come in. A man wearing ivory white clothes walked in. This man was handsome, but his every movement was dignified and magnanimous. He carried a box of food in his hand and bowed to Ning Shu. He took out the tonic soup from the box and gently said to Ning Shu, Chongqing greets Your Majesty. Mu Nishang's Phoenix Empress was called Lu Chongqing. He was the crown princess's father. Ning Shu recalled the plot. It seemed that he was banished to the cold palace by Mu Nishang. Mu Nishang did not even see him before she died. Lu Chongqing's eyebrows and eyes were like a painting. His hair was slightly loose and there was a xiangfei bamboo flute at his waist. He was a very elegant man. Thank you, Phoenix Empress. Ning Shu looked at the tonic soup and said, I will drink it later. Lu Chongqing smiled faintly. He did not force Ning Shu to drink the tonic soup. He only said, Your Majesty, drink it while it's hot. It won't taste good when it's cold. Ning Shu nodded and lowered his head to look at the memorial. Lu Chongqing bowed and turned to leave. The jade at his waist made a low sound when it collided with the xiangfei bamboo. Lu Chongqing was a very charming man. Ning Shu did not drink the tonic soup. Instead, he gave it to the female official beside him. This was because when he faced Lu Chongqing, there was an indescribable feeling in his heart. This feeling was not Ning Shu's, but the original owner's. Ning Shu did not know what this feeling contained, but it made Ning Shu wary. Chapter 537. Ning Shu's scalp went numb at the thought of having so many hot male concubines in the harem. Actually, Mu Nishang was a woman with a strong desire. As the empress, there was no way she could stay in front of so many handsome men. Phoenix Empress Lu Chongqing had just delivered the tonic soup. Not long after, Crown Princess Mu Shui sent someone to deliver something into the palace. Ning Shu looked at the box that the Empress Dowager had given her. It was filled with pills that looked like mud balls. Looking at the color, she had no appetite at all. What's more, pills were things like cinnabar, sulfur, alchemy stones, and the like mixed together. If it was a little exaggerated, it would be like adding a little bit of a maiden's blood into the pill furnace to refine it. This thing could cure all diseases and make one immortal. The original owner had a habit of eating pills because it could double Mu Nishang's pleasure in bed. Over time, she couldn't leave these things. Your Majesty, the Crown Princess said that the pills this time are better and gentler. They can also nourish the body, the female official said to Ning Shu as she held the box. Ning Shu glanced at the female official. He felt that this official was very talkative. She seemed to have been by Mu Nishang's side since she was young. She could be considered loyal. Official Autumn, don't talk so much in the future. My head hurts, Ning Shu said indifferently. Official Autumn's expression froze. She knelt on the ground and said fearfully, Your Majesty, please forgive this servant. This servant will not speak anymore. Rise. Ning Shu faintly said. She reached out and took out a pill from the box. She placed it on the tip of her nose and smelled it. There was the smell of rosin and sulfur. She guessed that the rosin was suppressing the other smells. Thinking that there might be the blood of a young woman inside, Ning Shu felt a chill. Put the pill in my chambers. Ning Shu held a cinnabar brush in her hand as she stared at the memorial. She somewhat understood that Mu Nishang didn't just abolish the crown princess because she doted on Mu Yao. It was most likely that the current crown princess was somewhat impatient and wanted to ascend the throne. What kind of daughter would give her mother pills? Anyone with a bit of common sense would know that this thing wasn't an immortality pill, but something that could take one's life. It drained one's energy and destroyed one's body. Especially the 5 minerals powder, which was the ancient version of drugs. It was a chronic poisoning. Ning Shu frowned. Originally, he wanted to give the throne to the rightful crown prince, but now it seemed that giving the country to Mu Shui was not what the original owner wanted. Otherwise, Mu Nishang would not have taken such a big risk to depose the crown prince. In other words, she still wants to do the same as in the plot, cripple Mu Yao and establish a new crown prince. In any case, it was impossible for the 4 imperial daughters to inherit the throne. Otherwise, the Yuan family would have the opportunity to control the imperial court. Excluding these 2 adult princesses, there were still 2 princesses in the middle, but they didn't have much of a presence. Ning Shu felt a headache coming on. Previously, he had thought that this quest would be simple. Now, it seemed that it wasn't simple at all. Ning Shu closed the memorial and said to Maid Qiu, call the 4th princess into the palace. I have something to say to her. Yes. Maid Qiu immediately went to do it. Not long after, Mu Yao hurried over. Lifting her skirt, she stepped over the threshold and walked into the palace. Her forehead was covered in sweat. It was obvious that she had rushed over after getting off the carriage at the palace entrance. Mu Yao was a little breathless as she bowed to Ning Shu. Then, Ning Shu asked, Imperial Mother, why are you looking for me? It's nothing. I just want someone to accompany Imperial Mother for dinner. Ning Shu said with a smile. Mu Yao sighed. Imperial Mother suddenly summoned me into the palace. I thought it was something important. You were too anxious. Ning Shu said with a smile. No wonder Mu Nishang doted on Mu Yao. Mu Yao had a silly air about her and was very serious when she encountered things. Everyone liked the feeling of being cared for. From Mu Yao's actions just now, it was clear that Mu Yao cared about Mu Nishang in her heart. She ran over as soon as she was called. Ning Shu didn't have any ill intentions towards Mu Yao. Moreover, the original owner of this body hoped that Mu Yao could be safe and happy. Ning Shu would also do his best to protect Mu Yao. He didn't know if the original owner of this body, Mu Nishang, could tell that this Mu Yao was no longer her woman. The two of them had changed so much. She should be able to tell that the original Mu Yao was violent, cruel, lustful and lascivious. She definitely wasn't like the current Mu Yao. However, she still protected Mu Yao openly and secretly. She even gave the empire to Mu Yao. This showed that this Mu Yao had walked into Mu Nishang's heart. Even if she knew that this Mu Yao was suspicious. As an empress, Mu Nishang's heart was lonely. Ning Shu told Maid Qiu to tell her what she liked and let the imperial kitchen make it. Mu Yao didn't stand on ceremony. She ordered what she liked to eat and also ordered what Ning Shu liked to eat. Ning Shu watched from the side and didn't say anything. Mu Yao asked Ning Shu, Imperial Mother, is this okay? Ning Shu nodded. Yes. Mu Yao immediately smiled and said to Maid Qiu, I'll have to trouble Maid Qiu. This servant doesn't dare. This is this servant's duty. Maid Qiu hurriedly said. Mu Yao looked at Ning Shu's tired expression. She got up from the chair and walked behind Ning Shu. She stretched out her hand and placed it on Ning Shu's temple. She slowly rubbed it while saying, Imperial Mother, you're working too hard. Imperial Mother has so many ministers. There are some things that you should just let them do. You're the Empress, so you should be relaxed. Ning Shu could only say that Mu Yao was foolish. There were some things that only an empress could do. If a minister did it, then it would be disgraceful. Some power must be held in one's hands. Imperial Mother, people should be happy. If they can enjoy happiness, then they should enjoy it. If they can be a rice worm, then they should be a rice worm. Your son's wish is to be a rice worm. Mu Yao said in a very sincere and light tone. Everyone is in this lifetime. Imperial Mother should do something that makes you happy. For example, your son likes to go shopping and buy things. Imperial Mother, you know that there are a lot of delicious food in Xian City. The osmanthus wine from Drunken Immortal Restaurant is fragrant and sweet. There's also sesame pancakes from Biscuit Shop that are crispy and fragrant. Ning Shu, I'm so sleepy. Ning Shu listened to Mu Yao talk non-stop. It was like a lullaby. When it was time to eat, Mu Yao would pick up food for Ning Shu. Then she would eat very happily. It was as if these things were delicacies in the world. Mu Yao ate very happily. Even Ning Shu felt that he had an appetite. From the moment he entered this body, Ning Shu felt all kinds of chest tightness and shortness of breath. His entire body was very weak. Ning Shu knew that this was because he had eaten too many pills. There was a lot of pill toxins in his body. Moreover, Ning Shu really wanted to eat pills. The original owner of this body ate pills when he was spiritless. After taking the pills, he would instantly feel refreshed and his strength would increase. This was actually a kind of short-term effect to confuse people. It was simply a vicious cycle. Ning Shu didn't plan to eat that pill. Every time he was upset, he would silently recite the clear heart incantation. Coupled with the effect of the calm halo, it wasn't that uncomfortable. After dinner, Ning Shu had Mu Yao go back. Call the imperial physician over. I'm not feeling well. Ning Shu said to Maid Autumn. Maid Autumn's face was filled with worry when she heard that Ning Shu wasn't feeling well. She immediately sent someone to call the imperial physician. Chapter 538. Ning Shu felt like he had to find a reason not to sleep with so many male concubines. Fuck, Ning Shu was very afraid of dying in bed. This body was the worst Ning Shu had ever encountered. "Doctor, how is my body?" Ning Shu asked the doctor who was checking his pulse. The doctor's hand shook as she took his pulse. She knelt on the ground and said, "Your body needs to rest. If I may be so bold, your majesty should eat less medicine." "What does resting involve?" Ning Shu raised his eyebrows and looked at the doctor. The doctor was shocked at first, but then she said, "Your majesty should abstain for a while." Okay, that was the answer Ning Shu wanted. The doctor left. Ning Shu planned to practice his ultimate martial arts. He had to get his body well. His body was very weak, and he was always sweating. "Your Majesty, today is the 15th, Ning Shu said. "So?" Ning Shu understood immediately. The 15th should be at the Phoenix Queen's palace. Ning Shu thought about it and decided to go to Phoenix Palace. Mu Nishang always went to Lu Changqing's palace on the 15th every month. Ning Shu couldn't change that. They arrived at Feng Qi Palace. Lu Changqing was dressed in blue, but he never left his bamboo flute. Lu Changqing was a very elegant and charming man. He always had an indifferent and quiet temperament. Seeing Lu Changqing, Ning Shu's heart had a strange feeling. It was like something was going to break out of his heart. Why was Mu Nishang's feelings for Lu Changqing so complicated? It was so complicated that Ning Shu couldn't tell what Mu Nishang's attitude towards Lu Changqing was. However, she was certain that Mu Nishang loved her Phoenix Queen. Lu Changqing was a quiet person. He didn't talk much in front of Ning Shu. It was awkward for the two of them to sit like this. Ning Shu coughed. Lu Changqing looked at Ning Shu and said, "Your Majesty, how about I play the flute for you?" Ning Shu shook his head. It was already so late, playing the flute would disturb the people. "Let's go to bed." A subtle expression flashed across Lu Changqing's face. He walked forward to help Ning Shu change his clothes. Lu Changqing's bony fingers brushed across Ning Shu's neck, making Ning Shu feel a burst of numbness and goosebumps all over his body. Ning Shu almost couldn't control himself and wanted to push Lu Changqing away. However, Ning Shu noticed that Lu Changqing's hand was slightly trembling. Ning Shu calmed down and held Lu Changqing's hand. Lu Changqing's hand was a bit cold, as if he was holding a piece of jade. "There's no need to trouble yourself. The imperial physician said that I need to recuperate," Ning Shu said. Lu Changqing discreetly broke free from Ning Shu's hand. Ning Shu revealed a faint smile, giving people a very comfortable feeling. Lu Changqing and Ning Shu lay on the bed. The two of them were speechless. They just looked at the top of the bed. Ning Shu felt as if he had long burrs. His entire body was uncomfortable. He said, "The matters of the imperial harem are all thanks to the Phoenix Queen's concern. I thank you." Lu Changqing was silent for a moment. Then, he said lightly, "This is my responsibility." Then, the two of them were speechless again. The atmosphere was a bit awkward. "Ning Shu, why was it so tiring to talk?" Ning Shu turned his back to Lu Changqing. Lu Changqing turned his head slightly and looked at Ning Shu's back. His eyes were unfocused. He reached out and placed his hand on Ning Shu's waist. He said lightly, "Your Majesty, sleep early. There's still morning court tomorrow." "Ning Shu, fuck, can you not put your hand on my waist? It's so prickly." While Ning Shu was still struggling, Lu Changqing had already taken his hand back. Then, he turned his body so that he was back to back with Ning Shu. In this situation, it was truly husband and wife sharing the same bed but dreaming different dreams. Ning Shu frowned. Lu Changqing, the Phoenix Queen, was really strange. Ning Shu turned around. He reached out and grabbed a handful of Lu Changqing's ink-black hair. Then, he clearly felt Lu Changqing's body stiffen and become motionless. As expected, there was a problem. Ning Shu took his hand back and sat up from the bed. He said to Lu Changqing, "I suddenly remembered an important political matter to take care of. I'll be leaving first." Lu Changqing held Ning Shu's hand. His hand was very cold. As soon as he held Ning Shu's hand, Ning Shu shivered. The coldness seemed to have invaded his heart. "Your Majesty, rest. It's already midnight. There'll be morning court soon." Lu Changqing's voice was clear and cold. He was saying words of concern, but his tone was both affectionate and emotionless. Ning Shu tightly frowned. Fuck, his heart was irritable. Especially when faced with this kind of Lu Changqing, who wanted to die but didn't die, who wanted to live but didn't have any energy. Ning Shu's heart had a lingering sense of irritation. This should be the original owner's mood. Ning Shu silently chanted the clear heart mantra in his heart to suppress this irritation. "Okay, sleep." Ning Shu lay down and chanted the clear heart mantra in his heart. As he chanted, he fell asleep. He didn't know how long he had slept, but Lu Changqing's cold voice sounded in his ear. "Your Majesty, it's time to leave the bed." Ning Shu woke up with a start. He felt his mouth and tongue dry, his body hot and dry. His heart was beating very fast. This body was really too weak. Ning Shu looked at Lu Changqing. Lu Changqing was sitting by the window with a book in his hand. The sunlight shone on his body, forming a faint layer of light. Even the cold and indifferent aura on his body dissipated by quite a bit. He was really a handsome man. Lu Changqing put down the book. Ning Shu walked over and picked up the clothes on the clothes rack. He said to Ning Shu, "Your Majesty, change your clothes." Ning Shu opened his arms and waited for Lu Changqing to put on his clothes. When Lu Changqing came closer, Ning Shu smelled the elegant scent on his body. Ning Shu felt that Mu Nishang must have liked this Lu Changqing. But in the short time he had spent with Lu Changqing, he didn't feel Lu Changqing's love for Mu Nishang. In other words, Lu Changqing didn't love Mu Nishang. So annoying. Whatever. The male concubines in the harem had nothing to do with her. She couldn't be bothered to worry about them. Lu Changqing helped Ning Shu tidy up his clothes. Ning Shu left. When she reached the door, Lu Changqing called out to her. Ning Shu turned around and looked at Lu Changqing. Lu Changqing was silent for a moment and said, "Your Majesty, take care of your body. Don't overwork yourself." Ning Shu smiled, nodded, and left. After leaving Phoenix Perch Hall, Ning Shu didn't rush to go to court. Instead, he returned to his own palace and gulped down a teapot of water. He was so thirsty that he felt like he was going to be dehydrated. Ning Shu checked his own pulse. This body had been hollowed out by elixirs. In the Phoenix Perch Hall, Ning Shu endured her thirst and didn't drink any water. She didn't know why, but whenever Ning Shu faced Lu Changqing, she always felt her hair stand on end. This kind of person who didn't like to talk and kept to himself, it was impossible to know what he was thinking. Lu Changqing wasn't very deep. He seemed like he didn't care about anything. He was indifferent and quiet. He managed the harem and didn't seek favor. Ning Shu tried hard to recall the plot. He wanted to know how Mu Nishang and Lu Changqing got along. There didn't seem to be anything special. Mu Nishang would go to Lu Changqing's Phoenix Perch Hall on the 15th of every month. The two had a daughter, Crown Princess Mu Shui. Chapter 539. Ning Shu didn't notice anything wrong with Lu Changqing, but he had a strange feeling in his heart. Ning Shu let go of his doubts and went to the morning court. He sat on the dragon throne and looked at the civil and military officials kneeling in front of him. Ning Shu's eyes focused on Crown Princess Mu Shui, who was wearing a bright yellow dress. Mu Shui looked more like Lu Changqing, but she didn't have Lu Changqing's indifference. She was full of the majesty of the imperial family. In this way, the crown princess was qualified to be the heir apparent. Ning Shu flicked his sleeve and said, "Do you have something to report?" Mu Shui stood up and bowed. "Imperial Mother, I have something to report." "Speak." Ning Shu narrowed his eyes and observed Mu Shui. Mu Shui didn't have any accessories on her body. Her hair was combed into a bun, and her long hair was like a ponytail. She didn't even have earrings on her ears. It was very simple. Mu Yao and the other two imperial daughters were dressed much more beautifully than the crown princess. Ning Shuqi narrowed her eyes and looked at Mu Shui carefully. Her eyebrows had been trimmed and were no longer willowy. Instead, they were thicker with a pen. The ends of her eyebrows were raised and flew diagonally to her temples. It was hard to tell her gender. "Imperial Mother, this is what I want to report." Mu Shui had a report in her hand. Maid Qiu quickly handed it to Ning Shu. Ning Shu opened it and was very surprised because he saw all kinds of punctuation marks on the report. Mu Shui introduced these punctuation marks in detail. Ning Shu was suspicious in his heart. He couldn't hide the surprise on his face. He asked Mu Shui, "What does this mean?" Mu Shui respectfully said, "I got the inspiration from fourth imperial sister." Ah! Mu Yao, who had nothing to do and was almost sleepy, was puzzled when she heard Mu Shui's words. Mu Shui smiled and said, "Imperial sister, didn't you say you have a hard time reading and don't know how to break sentences? I got the inspiration from it. Old 4, take a look." Ning Shu handed the memorial to Mu Yao. Mu Yao took the memorial from Maid Qiu's hands and instantly revealed an expression of sincere admiration. "Eldest imperial sister, you're really too amazing. I only said that and you came up with these punctuation marks." Mu Shui smiled and said nothing. Ning Shu narrowed his eyes and looked at Mu Shui. When Mu Shui met Ning Shu's gaze, she hurriedly said respectfully, "Mother, I hope that these symbols can be popularized." Ning Shu nodded. "I hope that every minister will use the memorials tomorrow morning." Ning Shu then looked at Mu Shui. "What's this?" "Imperial Mother, these are punctuation marks." Mu Yao was the first to speak. "Yes, punctuation marks. We hope that tomorrow's memorials will all have punctuation marks." Ning Shu said to Mu Shui, "You've done a good job. Spread this to all the private schools." "Yes, Imperial Mother," said Mu Shui. "Is there anything else?" "If there's nothing else, then court is dismissed." Ning Shu's face showed signs of exhaustion. Mu Shui saw Ning Shu's state and cupped her hands in salute. "I still have something to report." "Speak." Ning Shu looked at Mu Shui. Mu Shui deliberated for a moment before saying cautiously, "I think that men should be allowed to leave their homes and study in private schools. Men can make contributions and work for the country." When Mu Shui said this, the hall fell silent. No one said a word. Impudent. Men should stay at home and abide by the 3 husbands and 4 virtues. How can they show their faces in public? Ning Shu said sternly. "Don't let us hear something like this again." "Yes, I know my mistake." After being scolded by Ning Shu, Mu Shui's face flashed with a dark and gloomy expression. She lowered her head and said in a muffled voice. Mu Yao wanted to agree with Mu Shui, but when she saw her mother's ashen face, she shut her mouth and didn't say anything. "Court is dismissed." Ning Shu suddenly stood up. His vision suddenly darkened and he staggered. Fortunately, Ning Shu steadied himself and didn't fall. Ning Shu's heart froze. Although she appeared angry, she wasn't angry at all. But when she stood up, her vision darkened. He had a bad feeling in his heart. Ning Shu looked at the 4 adult princesses and felt that this mission was very troublesome. Mu Shui was also very abnormal. She was definitely a modern person who knew punctuation. Could it be that the current Mu Shui had also been transmigrated? Ning Shu rubbed his forehead and turned to leave the palace. The officials knelt to see Ning Shu off. After Ning Shu left, Mu Yao stood up and said to Mu Shui, "Eldest sister, don't be discouraged. I support you." Mu Shui looked at Mu Yao indifferently. Coldness flashed in her eyes, but it disappeared in an instant. She said, "Thank you, fourth sister. There's no need to thank me." Mu Yao smiled sweetly and her eyes were especially sincere. Mu Shui looked at Mu Yao's smile and was dazed for a moment. This woman was really like the woman in her memory. Mu Shui glanced at Mu Yao and turned to leave. Mu Yao was a bit confused. She shrugged and planned to go back to the palace to sleep. Ning Shu returned to his palace. He first drank a cup of water and rubbed his forehead. Why do I feel like I'm going to have a brain hemorrhage? He was also speechless. Why did Mu Nishang eat so many pills? There should be a limit to greed. Ning Shu called a royal shadow guard over and told him, "Go and investigate the crown princess' living habits for me. If there is anything unusual, report it to me." Not only did Ning Shu suspect that Mu Shui had been possessed, but she also suspected that the person inside Mu Shui's body was a man. She had changed her style of dressing and makeup slightly. Mu Shui's words on behalf of a man made Ning Shu think that the person inside Mu Shui's body was a man. Mu Shui had been living with such rules since she was young. Not to mention, she was the crown princess of a country. She didn't put men in her eyes. Just like in this world where men were superior to women, the crown prince of a country didn't put women in his eyes. He wouldn't say things like letting women go out of the house to receive education and build a career. The status of men in this world was extremely low. That was why Mu Nishang didn't accept a man sitting on the throne of Xian. Mu Nishang directly called men lowly people. The status of men living at the bottom was even lower. The germination of male chauvinism mainly came from the noble young masters who could receive education. Mu Shui's core was a man. She couldn't give the throne of Xian to her. What was the difference between this and a man sitting on the throne? Now, she wanted a man to receive education and build a career. To put it bluntly, she wanted a man to rule the country and control the country's resources. The result was the same as the crown princess's son ascending the throne. Perhaps in a few hundred years, it would become a world where men were superior to women. Ning Shu patted his chest. He felt very flustered. He didn't look at the memorial anymore. He sat cross-legged on the dragon bed and prepared to cultivate a peerless martial art. Without a good body, he couldn't do anything. Chapter 540. Ning Shu sat on the bed and cultivated. He felt that there was no effect. Perhaps this body's aptitude was too poor, so he couldn't cultivate for a while. Ning Shu felt a bit irritated, but he couldn't tell where this irritability came from. Perhaps it was because his body was too uncomfortable, causing him to be in a bad mood. In addition, the peerless martial arts that had always strengthened his body didn't seem to work. Ning Shu made up his mind. He had to cultivate for a while. This body always made him feel irritated. Furthermore, he was addicted to pills. The feeling of his heart being scratched was because he wanted to eat pills. After cultivating for a while, he still didn't have any results. Instead, he had some muddy red sweat. It should be the pill poison hidden in his body. The red in the sweat should be cinnabar. After a comfortable bath, he felt a lot more refreshed. Even his muddled mind was a lot clearer. After reading a few memorials, Ning Shu planned to go out and relax. He wanted to relieve the irritation in his heart. Ning Shu needed to be calm to complete his mission. Only with a calm heart could he notice the changes in his surroundings. After walking around the imperial garden for a while, he met a male concubine playing in the garden. This male concubine's posture was very enchanting. He wore gauzy clothes. Through the gauze, one could see 2 red dogwoods on his chest. Although he was enchanting, it was obvious that he was a man. When the male concubine saw Ning Shu, his eyes lit up. It was like an ant seeing a piece of candy. He immediately pounced over. When the male concubine came close, Ning Shu smelled the heavy incense on his body. He took 2 steps back. "Your Majesty, why haven't you come to see Lu recently?" "Lu misses your Majesty." The male concubine, Ning Shu, said unhappily. Ning Shu raised his eyebrows. "Didn't the Phoenix Empress tell you? I haven't been feeling well recently. I won't be entering the harem for the time being." The male concubine called Lu pouted and didn't say anything. Seeing him like this, Ning Shu knew that the Phoenix Empress had spoken to these male concubines. At first glance, Lu Zhongqing was a capable man. He took good care of the harem for the original owner. Ning Shu could not figure out why Mu Nishang would banish him to the cold palace. Was it because of the crown princess? Mu Nishang should have feelings for Lu Chongqing. Why didn't she look at Lu Chongqing even when she died? "If you have nothing to do, just stay in your palace. The sun is so strong that it will burn your skin," Ning Shu's concubine said. "Really?" The male consort touched his face. Ning Shu bowed and left in a hurry. The men in the harem all used their beauty to serve others. Of course, they cared about their appearance. Ning Shu wandered around and came to Lu Chongqing's Phoenix Perch Hall. Just as he was considering whether or not to go in, he saw Mu Shui come out. When Mu Shui saw Ning Shu, she was stunned for a moment. She quickly walked over and saluted Ning Shu. Ning Shu looked at Mu Shui. His eyes flashed, and he said, "Crown Princess, are you here to see the Phoenix Queen?" "Yes, I am here to see my father." "I am going to leave now," Mu Shui said respectfully. Ning Shu did not know if it was an illusion, but Mu Shui was very respectful, but Ning Shu felt that Mu Shui's attitude was not that respectful. Ning Shu nodded. Mu Shui said goodbye and left. Ning Shu looked at Mu Shui's back. The more he looked at her, the more she looked like a man. A woman's body was soft, and it was inevitable that she would sway her hips when walking. But Mu Shui walked straight. Ning Shu guessed that she was walking with her hips tight. Ning Shu looked at Phoenix Perch Hall. He did not plan on going in. Every time he faced Lu Chongqing, he felt awkward. After all, she was not Mu Nishang. It would be bad if Lu Chongqing saw something. Ning Shu turned and left. He was going to return to his palace. After returning to the palace, Ning Shu sent a few royal secret guards to observe the second Princess Mu Meng and the third Princess Mu Rou. He wanted to see if they could become the Empress. If they couldn't, then he would find a younger one and make more arrangements to ensure the stability of the country. In any case, Ning Shu could see that Mu Nishang's intention was not to let a man usurp the country. She wanted to ensure that the country was in the hands of the Mu clan. During this time, Ning Shu did not give up on cultivating peerless martial arts. However, he did not manage to cultivate Qi Jin. Generally, in the modern world where there was less spirit energy, it was impossible to cultivate Qi Jin. In ancient times, it was possible to cultivate Qi Jin. However, Ning Shu took a lot of time to cultivate this body. But it was still useless. When he cultivated, he would sweat and expel some pill toxins from his body. However, it was not enough for Ning Shu. The secret guard that Ning Shu sent to observe Mu Shui came back and told Ning Shu what he had observed. Ning Shu sorted out the things that the secret guard said. Mu Shui always wore black clothes in her mansion. She never wore jewelry. She basically didn't let the servants serve her. She also didn't enter the backyard. The bulge in front of her chest was also restrained. Ning Shu was 100% sure that the person in Mu Shui's body was a man. Moreover, it was a man with serious ideas. It was getting more and more lively. However, Mu Shui also did a good thing. That was, she made punctuation marks. Now, it was much easier for her to read memorials and deal with political affairs. Now, Ning Shu was going to take Mu Nishang's original path and remove Mu Shui from the position of crown prince. Did Mu Nishang discover something and risk shaking the foundation of the country to remove Mu Shui from the position of crown prince? Did she discover that the soul in Mu Shui's body was a man's soul? The plot didn't give Ning Shu much useful information. In short, this task was not simple. She had naively thought that this task was simple before. Ning Shu felt that his task was getting more and more difficult. Was it his bad luck or the system's intention? During the time when Ning Shu didn't go to the harem, Lu Chongqing would occasionally send some tonic soup to Ning Shu. He would tell Ning Shu to pay attention to his body. It was like routine business, which made Ning Shu's balls hurt. Every time he saw the xiangfei bamboo flute on Lu Chongqing's waist, Ning Shu wanted to know the origin of this flute. Lu Chongqing seemed to cherish it and carried it with him except when he went to sleep. Ning Shu's heart was itching. He couldn't help but ask, "Phoenix Empress, what is the meaning of this flute?" Lu Chongqing took the flute from his waist. Ning Shu said, "This flute was made by Chongqing himself." There were mottled marks on the xiangfei bamboo. It was like a person's tears had dripped onto it. Ning Shu nodded and said, "Phoenix Empress's craftsmanship is good." Lu Chongqing pursed his lips. His expression was a bit dark. Ning Shu told him to remember to drink the soup and then left. Ning Shu was confused. Did she say something wrong? Why did it feel like Lu Chongqing was angry? Shouldn't she praise the craftsmanship? Should she praise the bamboo for looking good? "Your Majesty, when you and Phoenix Empress were young, you planted a bunch of xiangfei bamboo," Maid Autumn couldn't help but say. Ning Shu, 0, I see. Chapter 541. Lu Chongqing carried the bamboo that he planted with Mu Nishang. Did it mean that Lu Chongqing also had feelings for Mu Nishang? Damn, it seemed that he had to have less contact with Lu Chongqing in the future. They grew up together, so he must know Mu Nishang very well. Even if he knew the reason why Lu Chongqing carried xiangfei's bamboo flute, Ning Shu still didn't plan to drink the tonic soup Lu Chongqing brought over. It was just a kind of intuition. Ning Shu was thinking about how to remove Mu Shui from the position of crown prince. Could he put the Empress dragon robe in Mu Shui's residence like Mu Nishang? He still felt that it was inappropriate to punish Mu Shui with the crime of rebellion. He had to think of a better way. The method of putting the dragon robe must catch the other party off guard. If the other party was on guard, it would be for nothing. Instead, he would be blamed by the other party. After meeting Mu Shui a few times, Ning Shu felt that the soul in Mu Shui's body was a relatively deep person. This method might not be effective. Ning Shu's head hurt thinking. Mu Shui didn't do anything immoral. Some time ago, she even created punctuation marks, which were beneficial to the country. As long as she didn't do anything excessive, Mu Shui's position as crown prince was stable. Mu Shui basically didn't show up in front of Ning Shu. This made Ning Shu a little unsure of Mu Shui's way of doing things. Last time, Mu Shui proposed to let a man be an official. After being scolded by her, Mu Shui never mentioned this matter again. Obviously, she kept it in her heart. On the other hand, whenever Mu Yao encountered something fun or delicious, she would bring a portion for Ning Shu. She was a filial daughter. Ning Shu looked at Mu Yao's peach blossom face and guessed that she met another handsome man. He asked, "I heard that you've been very close to the son of Prime Minister Yuan recently." "Who's close to him?" "I'm not." Mu Yao's face turned red and she almost jumped up. Ning Shu glanced at her. "If you're not, then you're not. I've heard some rumors in the palace. If you don't like it, then don't do anything, don't ruin the mother's reputation. Otherwise, he can only marry you in the future. Worry appeared on Mu Yao's face. Ning Shu asked, will I really ruin his reputation? Why don't I marry him? Ning Shu was speechless. Good child, go play somewhere else. Ning Shu originally thought that Mu Yao and Mother June wouldn't get married so quickly, but Mu Yao knelt down with a plop during the morning court the next day, asking Ning Shu to decree the marriage. Imperial Mother, I want to marry the Origin Lord. Mu Yao spoke bluntly and directly. Is the mother's is said asked Mu's. Asked Yao's was the mother to asked Mu. Ning Shu looked at Yuan Jun's mother's expression and knew that Mu Yao did not inform Yuan Jun's mother at all. Prime Minister Yuan pondered in his heart. His Majesty doted on the 4 imperial daughters. Lady Yuan and the 4 imperial daughters could be considered a good home. Prime Minister Yuan understood his son. He was proud and would not bow down to a woman. 4th Princess Huang was a woman with a good temper. She should be able to tolerate Yuan Jun, it's my honor, said Mu Mu. Ning Shu had only issued an edict to bestow the marriage, allowing Yuan Jun to marry Mu Yao as the principal husband. Ning Shu had no intention of separating the two of them. Mu Shui's son ascended the throne by chance. Ning Shu didn't even let Mu Yao touch the edge of the throne. Mu Shui didn't have the ability to do that. Ning Shu and Mu Mu agreed on the wedding date. Mu Yao was smiling the whole time. She was very happy. Obviously, she liked Mu Shui very much. Ning Shu glanced at the silent Mu Shui and asked, Crown Princess, do you have a man you like? The position of your official husband is vacant, you should have a man to take care of you. Mu Shui's face stiffened and then returned to normal. If Ning Shu didn't look carefully, he wouldn't be able to see the change in Mu Shui's expression. I'm not in a hurry. When I have a man I like, then, I will ask Imperial Mother to give the marriage decree. Mu Shui said respectfully. Ning Shu nodded. Then, he felt a fishy sweetness in his throat. Then, hot blood poured into his mouth. His mouth was full of the taste of blood. Shit. What's going on? Ning Shu's face changed. In front of the civil and military officials, he could only swallow the blood in his mouth. He waved his hand at Maid Chiu. Maid Chiu immediately said, Court is dismissed. Ning Shu quickly stood up and walked towards the side chamber. Mu Shui looked at Ning Shu's back deeply. Then, she said coldly to Mu Yao, who was in high spirits, Congratulations to Imperial Sister for getting a beauty. Thank you, Imperial Sister. Mu Yao smiled very happily. Mu Shui just grinned and didn't say anything. Her eyes were on Mu Yao. When Ning Shu arrived at the side chamber, he vomited a mouthful of blood. Ning Shu didn't know why he suddenly vomited blood. Ning Shu checked his pulse and frowned. His pulse seemed to be normal. Your Majesty. Maid Chiu was shocked when she saw Ning Shu vomiting blood. Ning Shu wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and chin. Don't spread the news. Call the imperial physician over. Her symptoms seemed like she was poisoned. Impossible. If she came into contact with the source of the poison, she would have noticed it. Ning Shu only had a superficial understanding of medicine. However, he was more proficient in the art of poison. He didn't expect that he would be poisoned one day. Ning Shu repeatedly checked his pulse. However, it didn't seem like he was poisoned. Could it be that his medical skills were too bad? Damn, being the emperor was really tough. He was always poisoned and there were always unruly people who wanted to harm him. In any case, Ning Shu couldn't figure out how he was poisoned. After the imperial physician arrived, Ning Shu hurriedly had the imperial physician check his pulse. The imperial physician checked for a while before shaking his head. Your Majesty's pulse seems to be poisoned, but it also doesn't seem to be poisoned. The imperial physician used a silver needle to touch the blood that Ning Shu had vomited on the ground. He observed that the needle had changed color. It should be poison. Ning Shu waved his hand to dismiss the imperial physician. He took out the antidote pill he had exchanged for and ate one. He thought that the antidote pill would be enough to cure the poison in his body. However, not long after, Ning Shu vomited blood again. Ning Shu was a bit confused. Why didn't the antidote pill produced by the system work? Ning Shu's hand trembled as he wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. 2333, what's going on? Ning Shu called out to 2333 in his mind. This situation was a bit strange. Let me scan your body first. 2333 said. Then, he remained silent. Ning Shu suppressed his impatience and asked, what's going on? You are poisoned. To be precise, it is a curse. And, it is a system product. 2333 said. Ning Shu, what the fuck? This meant that there was another quest taker in this world. And this quest taker had cursed her without her noticing. Is there a way to cure it? Ning Shu asked 2333. 2333 was silent. Ning Shu's heart was cold. If he died, this quest would be considered a failure. Chapter 542. Ning Shu was very confused about who the other quest taker was and whose body it was in. However, the most important thing now was the curse. Ning Shu asked 2333, is there really no way to break it? No, this curse is a one-time use item. However, the person who is cursed will definitely die. Therefore, your quest will fail. 2333 sounded very helpless. Fortunately, you exchanged for the amulet. This amulet can save your life. Damn it, she was not satisfied. Let's leave this quest world. 2333 said Ning Shu, after all, the person who is cursed will die soon. Ning Shu bit her lips and asked, how do we leave? Of course, we die. Kill yourself. 2333 said without much care. Damn it, how could she do such a stupid thing? Once she died, Mu Shui would ascend to the throne. Moreover, it would be a man ascending to the throne. What was the difference between this and the original plot? Ning Shu shook her head. Even if she failed the quest, she had to endure it. She did not know who the other quest taker was, but she had to do something even if she had to die. I want you to die for your own good. The person who is cursed will suffer a lot. Every day, they will feel like thousands of ants are drilling into their heart. The pain will break their bones. You can say that they will die from the pain. They will also vomit blood. 2333 sounded very helpless. What the hell? Ning Shu was so shocked that she almost jumped up. This was the first time she had seen such an evil item. Moreover, it was used on her. Ning Shu always chose items to protect herself and increase her strength. She did not know that there was such an item. Ning Shu felt a fishy sweetness in his throat as blood surged up. Ning Shu smiled and swallowed the blood. He picked up the teacup and took a sip to rinse his mouth. Then, he swallowed the blood in his mouth with a gulp. 2333, this was a true portrayal of the mixed blood swallowing the teeth. You really don't want to leave? 2333 asked. This is very, very painful. Very, very painful. Very few people can withstand it. This is the system's most evil item. The people who are cursed will kill themselves. Ning Shu, he was already afraid, yet he was still exaggerating the horror of this curse. Ning Shu was on tenterhooks, but when he thought of running away in such a cowardly manner, it was simply too useless. Endure it. I'm someone who has endured the pain of chemotherapy for more than 10 years. No matter how great the pain is, I can endure it. Although Ning Shu was already mentally prepared, she still experienced what it meant to be in so much pain that she wished she was dead. Her internal organs felt as if countless needles were pricking her, and it was so painful that she almost stopped breathing. Moreover, it was as if a hammer was slowly and rhythmically breaking her bones inch by inch. Not only that, but he was also vomiting blood. For a moment, Ning Shu wanted to die just like that, as if he was in purgatory. Even though Ning Shu had prepared painkillers, it was useless. This curse seemed to be attacking the nerves, causing a feeling of extreme pain. It was as painful as it could be, overlapping the extreme pain of a human. Ning Shu was in so much pain that he rolled on the bed, biting the blanket tightly. When the pain was unbearable, Ning Shu stuffed antidote pills into his mouth. This was a curse similar to a poison. Although taking antidote pills was useless, Ning Shu could only hypnotize himself that it was useful. Your Majesty, Your Majesty. Maid Autumn, who was holding a spittoon beside the dragon bed, was so anxious that she was crying. I'll go find the imperial physician. Come back. Ning Shu's breathing was weak. Don't spread it. What's the use of calling the imperial physician? The imperial physician couldn't cure it. Ning Shu was now suffering. Your Majesty. Maid Autumn looked at the blood in the spittoon with a terrified expression. Fortunately, his body seemed to be able to withstand the pain. Ning Shu was barely able to endure the pain. He asked Maid Autumn to get rid of the blood-stained flyers on the bed so that no one would notice. Ning Shu was in so much pain that his body was trembling. All the muscles in his body seemed to have gone out of control. Ning Shu couldn't even raise his hand. Ning Shu's breath was weak as she lay on the bed. She kept chanting the Clear Heart mantra in her heart, hoping that the Clear Heart mantra could dissipate some of the despair, hatred, and the urge to die. Ning Shu, why don't we go? This is only the first wave. It will only get more and more painful. Anyway, this mission has failed. There's no point in holding on like this. 2333's voice sounded in Ning Shu's mind. Ning Shu wanted to smile, but the pain made his face look hideous. I can't suffer for nothing. Sigh. 2333 could only sigh. When you go back, remember to exchange for an aura that can resist curses. The missions in the future will get more and more complicated. It's normal for quest takers to be enemies. It's all up to each other. Ning Shu swallowed the blood in her mouth. She had never noticed such an item before. It seemed that she would have to browse the system store more in the future. There were items that could protect people, and there were items that could harm people. Ning Shu recited the Clear Heart incantation and fell asleep in a daze. She didn't know how long she had slept, but Maid Autumn's voice rang out beside her ear. Your Majesty, your body is not feeling well. Will you be attending court today? Ning Shu opened her eyes. Her whole body was numb. She struggled to get off the bed and sat in front of the bronze mirror. When she looked into the bronze mirror, Ning Shu was so scared that she almost dropped the mirror. The person in the mirror was as white as a sheet. To be precise, it was pale. Put more rouge on me. Ning Shu's voice came out from her throat. After a while, Ning Shu's face looked much better. It didn't look so scary anymore. Hold a cup of water. I will be thirsty. Ning Shu's voice was a little hoarse. She could vomit blood at any time. She could rinse her mouth with a cup of water. Otherwise, her mouth would be full of red teeth. Maid Autumn nodded. Ning Shu's legs were trembling as she walked. Her body was in too much pain. Ning Shu walked very slowly. She had to pretend to be graceful and elegant, but under her skirt, her legs were like sifting chaff. The moment she sat on the dragon throne, Ning Shu sighed in her heart. It was so comfortable to sit there. If you have something to report, court is dismissed. Maid Autumn immediately shouted. Her voice was especially sharp today, like a cuckoo crying blood. Mu Yao was the first to speak. Imperial Mother, there's still a few days before the day of my wedding. Imperial Mother must attend my wedding, and I still have to kowtow to you. Ning Shu was just about to speak when his throat heated up. He swallowed the blood with difficulty and waved at Maid Autumn. Maid Autumn immediately took the teacup that the palace servant behind her was holding. Ning Shu gulped down the tea before saying to Mu Yao, "We'll see when the time comes." Mu Yao wasn't disappointed. She knew that her imperial mother was busy with government affairs all day. "Imperial Mother, you don't look very well. Are you feeling unwell?" Crown Princess Mu Shui asked Ning Shu. Ning Shu looked at Mu Shui and said, "I'm feeling a little unwell, but it's an old illness." Chapter 543. Mu Shui's eyes scanned his face inch by inch. She then lowered her head, not daring to look directly at his face. "Mother Empress, you've seen the imperial physician. Don't bear with it if you're not feeling well." Ning Shu's expression was very cold. "Why should I bear with it? Why should I bear with it?" Mu Shui frowned, then said respectfully, "I'm just worried about Mother Empress's health. If Mother Empress thinks it's fine, then it's fine." Ning Shu heard Mu Shui's words. "As long as you're happy, it's fine." Ning Shu was already very lucky to be able to not reveal anything in front of so many people. He directly said that the court was dismissed and turned to leave. Back in the palace, Ning Shu fell onto the dragon bed. He felt as if countless knives were scraping his bones. It was so painful that Ning Shu's consciousness blurred. Ning Shu silently chanted the clear heart mantra. Since he couldn't cure the pain, he could only hypnotize himself. "Damn bastard, I won't let you go. When I find out who you are, I'll make a big deal out of it. If you want to kill someone, just give them a stab. Why do you have to torture them?" Ning Shu glanced at Official Chiu, who was standing next to him with an incomparably worried expression. Official Chiu was the person she usually interacted with the most. If it really was Official Chiu, Ning Shu felt that her acting skills were simply out of the universe. Ning Shu could feel Official Chiu's loyalty to him, but he couldn't say for sure. There was also Lu Chongqing. He spent more time with Lu Chongqing. He even slept in Phoenix Perch Hall for a night. He didn't know anything after he fell asleep. Lu Chongqing was on the list of suspects. Fourth imperial daughter Mu Yao should be a cute girl. A person's eyes couldn't lie. It wasn't easy for mission enforcers to pretend to be so pure and innocent. There was also Mu Shui. Ning Shu suspected Mu Shui the most. If the soul in Mu Shui's body was a quest enforcer, then a quest enforcer had helped Mu Shui counterattack. It turned out that Mu Shui, who was cannon fodder, had offered her soul to the quest enforcer to counterattack. If it was a woman's soul in Mu Shui's body, Ning Shu wouldn't mind. But it just had to be a man. Moreover, that man seemed to be an ambitious man who wanted to turn the matriarchal empire into a male-dominated society. Once thoughts surfaced, they couldn't be controlled. Most importantly, he had actually put a curse on himself. Ning Shu would rather die from the pain than let him complete the task easily. "I'll drag you down with me. Your Majesty, why don't this servant go and find an imperial physician? Why are you in so much pain?" Official Autumn was extremely anxious. Ning Shu waved his hand. "Don't worry about it. There's no need to find an imperial physician. Bring the memorials to me." Ning Shu didn't even want to move. Official Autumn placed the memorials in front of Ning Shu. Ning Shu's eyes were in a daze. The words on the memorials were blurry, one blurring into two. "Read them to me," Ning Shu said to Official Autumn. "This servant doesn't dare." Official Autumn knelt on the ground with a thump. Ning Shu said indifferently, "If I say you can, then you can." In the end, It was official Autumn who read the memorials to Ning Shu one by one, allowing Ning Shu to understand some things from these memorials. After official Autumn finished reading a memorial, Ning Shu held a cinnabar pen and wrote in circles on the memorial. In order to prevent his hand from shaking too much, Ning Shu used his left hand to hold his right wrist. Only then could he write without shaking. Ning Shu, it really was painful. Living like this was truly painful. Every day was so painful that he wanted to die. He also had to vomit blood. How much blood could a human's body vomit? And right now, Ning Shu couldn't eat anymore. It was as if his stomach had lost its ability to digest. Eating would make his body feel even more pain. Even if he didn't die of pain, he would die of hunger. Fortunately, Ning Shu had exchanged for a fasting pill beforehand. Eating one would turn into energy that his body needed. There was no need to digest it, and he could go a long time without eating. Every time he ate, Ning Shu would pretend to eat something. Eating these things was also a burden on his body. The person who had cursed him was really ruthless. Ning Shu felt like every day was like a year. Every second was so painful and unbearable. He felt like he was in hell. He didn't know when this hell would end. Ning Shu had been thinking of a way to deal with Mu Shui. Whether the task enforcer was Lu Chongqing or Mu Shui, their goal should be the Dragon Throne. He must remove Mu Shui's status as the crown princess and find a successor. Ning Shu was afraid that he wouldn't be able to endure it and die. Even if he defeated Mu Shui, these ministers would push the 4 imperial daughters to the throne. Ning Shu would really vomit blood and die. Ning Shu was hanging on by a thread. He didn't want Mu Shui to become the empress. Ning Shu had already thrown the task to the back of his mind. In any case, this body would die soon. If the task enforcer's body died, her task would also fail. This body would be tortured by endless pain until it collapsed. Ning Shu endured the pain in his body and still went to court every day. It was just that the makeup on his face was getting thicker and thicker. His lips were starting to turn blue. Every time he went to court, he would put on red lipstick and heavy makeup. Seeing that Mu Shui was getting more and more confused and even began to indirectly ask about her physical condition, Ning Shu was 80% sure that the soul in Mu Shui's body was a mission enforcer. However, Ning Shu was more curious about how Mu Shui managed to put a curse on her. Did she do it in her own mansion? How did this curse get to me? Ning Shu asked 2333 in his mind. 2333 said, the curse needs a carrier. Anything can be a carrier. Then, a specific person will touch the carrier, and the curse will be transferred to the person. It's very insidious. Ning Shu frowned. She had touched a lot of things. Who knew which one was the carrier of the curse? Ning Shu had learned that there was no such thing as the most sinister in the human heart. There was only something more sinister. In the future, he would have to exchange for more things and arm himself to the teeth. It would be great to see these people who wanted to harm others see their things fail. Ning Shu knew that Mu Shui had started to gather the officials in private. She just didn't dare to make too big of a move in private. She was probably building momentum for her ascension to the throne. Also, Mu Shui had some talented men under her command. It seemed that she planned to let these men become officials after she ascended to the throne. He was determined not to let this happen. There were too many planes where men were superior to women. Ning Shu wanted to see these men live a lowly life under the control of women. You could say that Ning Shu had a bad taste. Anyway, that was what Ning Shu thought. Even if there was a day when men could rise up again, Ning Shu didn't want that day to come so soon. Your Majesty, the Phoenix Queen is waiting outside the palace. Do you want to see her? Autumn Maid saw that Ning Shu was in so much pain that the veins on his forehead were popping. His face was distorted. Autumn Maid carefully asked Ning Shu. Ning Shu shook his head. He didn't want to see the Phoenix Queen. If he looked like this, the Phoenix Queen would definitely see through him. Ning Shu didn't want the news of him being poisoned to spread. Otherwise, it would give Mu Shui a chance to rule the country. His position as the empress would be taken away. Chapter 544. When Lu Changqing heard Autumn say that His Majesty did not want to see him, he glanced into the hall and said to Autumn, "Please take care of His Majesty, Autumn." Autumn hurriedly bowed. "This is your servant's duty." Lu Zhangqing glanced into the hall again before turning to leave. Autumn walked into the hall. Ning Shu said, "Your Majesty, the Phoenix Empress has left." Ning Shu asked, "What does the Phoenix Empress want from me?" "It seems to be some tonic soup for your Majesty." Autumn saw that Lu Changqing was carrying a box of food and then took it away. Ning Shu was speechless. Tonic soup again. If she drank every tonic soup Lu Changqing brought over, who knew how nourishing she would be? She might even be too weak to take it. However, Ning Shu guessed that Lu Changqing had probably come to test him to see if there was anything wrong with his body. In any case, Ning Shu was extremely wary of Lu Changqing and Mu Shui. "Your Majesty, today is the 15th, Autumn said." So what if it was the 15th? She was in so much pain that she felt like she was walking on a steel knife. Would she still go to Phoenix Perch Palace? When she was in pain, she wanted to bang her head against the wall. Even a blind person could see that something was wrong with her. Ning Shu repeatedly reminded Autumn, "Pay attention to the people below. Don't blabber." "I will pay attention." Autumn saw that Ning Shu's clothes were soaked with sweat and quickly prepared hot water for a bath. At night, the servants of Phoenix Perch Palace came to invite Ning Shu and asked if Ning Shu would go to Phoenix Perch Palace. Autumn directly said that His Majesty was busy with government affairs and would not go. The servants went back to tell Lu Changqing that His Majesty would not be coming to Phoenix Perch Palace tonight. Lu Changqing heard this and pursed his lips. Finally, he said, "Go to bed." The next day, when Ning Shu went to court and saw Mu Shui, she threw a memorial at Mu Shui's face. Mu Shui was stunned for a moment. When she was hit by Ning Shu, she forgot to dodge and was hit on the forehead by the hard corner of the memorial. Her skin was broken and beads of blood flowed out. Mu Shui touched her forehead and saw the bright red blood stains on her fingers. A fierce look flashed across her face as she knelt down and lowered her head in fear. "I don't know why Imperial Mother is so angry." "Your Majesty, please calm down." The civil and military officials all knelt down. "Open the memorial and see what's written on it." "Crown Princess, you're the heir to the throne, yet you're keeping a bunch of concubines outside. What are you doing? As the Crown Princess, you should be cautious at all times. Do you want the entire country to think that the Crown Princess is a licentious person? Do you still want to be the Crown Prince?" Ning Shu coldly said, "Raising such a group of male pets, the sound of perverted music from them can be heard next door." Mu Shui tightly knitted her handsome brows and picked up the memorial on the ground. She opened it and read it. The contents of the memorial were accusing her of being licentious and having a lot of male pets, which went against the dignity of a crown prince. Ning Shu coldly looked at Mu Shui. "What else do you have to say?" Mu Shui's face was gloomy. Those men weren't male pets, they were the talents he found. Would he play with them? Mu Shui felt as if she had stepped on feces. Mu Shui couldn't understand. How could she be impeached? As for disturbing the neighbors next door, those people wouldn't do such a stupid thing. Mu Shui glanced at the high and mighty empress and didn't refute. "I know I'm wrong." "If you know you're wrong, then you should change. How can I rest assured to hand the country over to you like this? Send these male pets back to where they came from. Don't let them appear in Xian City again." Ning Shu felt as if the bones in his body were about to shatter. His voice was practically stolen from the gaps between his teeth. His entire body was drenched in sweat. When the ministers saw Ning Shu's body trembling slightly, they only thought that Ning Shu was angry. One by one, they shouted for Ning Shu to calm down. Mu Shui kowtowed to the ground and said in a muffled voice, "I know. As the crown prince, you must always pay attention to your actions. Dismiss these male pets and ground them for a month." Ning Shu felt as if something was bubbling up in his throat. He was almost about to spit it out. He couldn't even swallow it. Ning Shu flicked his sleeves and turned to enter the side chamber. "Eldest imperial sister, your forehead is bleeding. Are you alright?" Mu Yao reached out to help Mu Shui up. Mu Shui brushed away Mu Yao's hand and stood up. She didn't even look at Mu Yao and turned to leave. Her back was filled with a cold aura. Mu Yao wrinkled her delicate nose. She felt that her eldest imperial sister didn't like her. Her attitude towards her was also strange. However, Mu Yao didn't care about Mu Yao's attitude. She happily returned to the residence. She was about to get married. As soon as Ning Shu entered the side chamber, he couldn't hold it in any longer. He spat out a large mouthful of blood. This time, the blood wasn't bright red. Instead, it was mixed with blood clots. It looked a bit like fragments of his internal organs. Ning Shu felt that he wouldn't be able to hold on for much longer. "Your Majesty, should we call for an imperial physician? You won't be able to take it if you keep spitting out blood like this." Autumn official looked at the blood on the obsidian floor and spoke in a trembling voice. Ning Shu waved his hand. He lay on the couch and was barely breathing. Autumn official personally fetched water. She squatted on the ground and used a rag to wipe the blood on the floor. Her eyes were red. Ning Shu found it funny when he saw her like this. "Why are you crying? This servant's heart aches for your Majesty." Autumn official wiped the floor vigorously. Ning Shu was quite happy. At least today, he got rid of the talent that Mu Shui had painstakingly searched for. Mu Shui had people in the imperial court. Could it be that he, the empress, didn't have people in the imperial court? If he wanted to impeach her, wouldn't it be a matter of minutes? The most important thing now was to find an heir. Ning Shu called back the hidden guards that had been sent to investigate the second and third imperial princesses. He carefully asked what was so special about these two people. Ning Shu didn't expect them to have any great talents. He only hoped that they could inherit the country of Xian. Several hidden guards told Ning Shu what they had observed. Ning Shu summarized. In short, the two imperial princesses were mediocre. They were really mediocre. If they were hiding it, they wouldn't show it at all. If they wanted to pretend to be a pig to eat a tiger, they might become a pig in the end. As an emperor, not only did he need to be patient, he also needed to have the aura of a ruler. Occasionally, he needed to play open schemes and attack openly. The three imperial princesses had a fatal flaw, which was that they were too lecherous. Every night, they would recruit more than 2 male pets. They liked to play with excitement. They were too greedy for pleasure in bed. It was easy to listen to pillow talk and be seduced by beauty. Ning Shu's head hurt from thinking about it. In short, even with Ning Shu's not very bright brain, he knew that these two were not the best candidates for the throne. The original owner, Mu Nikhang, also didn't choose these two people. Instead, she gave the throne to Mu Yao. So now, where was she going to find an heir? There were only 4 adult imperial princesses. In the imperial harem, there were still baby girls who wore pants. Ning Shu's brain was kicked by a donkey. He wouldn't choose a baby girl. Wasn't this giving the ministers a chance to control the imperial court? A baby girl could fight against those adult imperial princesses. Ning Shu sighed in his heart. The pain was unbearable. He stuffed an antidote pill into his mouth. Although it didn't have any effect, at least it had a psychological effect. If he took the pill, it would definitely be useful. Chapter 545. Mu Yao was going to marry the Yuan Jun, so Ning Shu had to give them a wedding gift. Ning Shu said to Autumn Official, who was wiping the floor, "What good things do I have in my warehouse? Let me see what gift I should give to the fourth princess." Autumn Official took the booklet. Ning Shu said, "Your Majesty, everything in the warehouse is recorded in the booklet. Read it." Ning Shu said with his eyes closed. Autumn Official read the rare jewels in the booklet. When Ning Shu heard about the Dragon Pearl, he was stunned. Dragon Pearl? What Dragon Pearl? Let me see. Yes. Autumn Official immediately asked someone to bring the Dragon Pearl over. The Dragon Pearl in Autumn Official's mouth was the size of a baby's fist. It was lustrous and snow-white, like a big pearl. Ning Shu took the Dragon Pearl and sniffed it. It had a fishy smell, and he could even hear the sound of the tide when he placed it beside his ear. Ning Shu was a little surprised. This couldn't really be a Dragon Pearl, right? Your Majesty, this is a Dragon Pearl given to you by a wandering immortal. He said it can prolong your life. Autumn Official saw that Ning Shu was interested in this Dragon Pearl and hurriedly said, "Dragon Pearl?" Ning Shu recalled what he had read in the book. This thing should be the inner core of a high-level creature. How could it be here? Ning Shu put away this thing and ordered a lot of rare jewels to send to the fourth princess's residence. Ning Shu had difficulty walking now, so he naturally wouldn't attend Mu Yao's wedding. What if he couldn't control himself and vomited blood again? However, an accident happened the day before the wedding. The Yuan Jun went missing, and no one knew where she went. Even the Yuan family didn't know where she went. When Ning Shu found out about this, the first thing that came to his mind was Mu Shui. This was done by Mu Shui. She was already grounded, yet she still did such a thing. It was probably because her people were driven out of Xian City by Ning Shu. She was so angry that she did such a disgusting thing. Even if Mu Shui wasn't the one who did it, Ning Shu planned to pin the blame on her. After Yuan Jun went missing, Mu Yao was so anxious that she cried. The damage to a woman's reputation when a man went missing was really too great, just like how the feudal society was harsh on a woman's reputation. The female supreme country's requirements for men had also reached a harsh level. Ning Shu sent out guards to look for Yuan Jun, but they couldn't find her. Moreover, after one night, Yuan Jun's reputation had been ruined. The wedding was naturally postponed indefinitely. Mu Yao ran into the palace and kowtowed to Ning Shu. "Imperial Mother, you must help me find Mother." Ning Shu was in so much pain that his whole body was trembling. He swallowed the blood in his throat and drank a cup of water before saying, "But progenitor's reputation has been ruined." Mu Yao immediately said, "I don't care about your reputation at all. I like him as a person. Even if he loses his chastity, I don't care." Mu Yao was different from the people of this world. She didn't think it was a big deal for a man to lose his chastity. Ning Shu nodded and said, "Since you want to marry Yuan Jun, then marry him. But marrying a man who loses his chastity is a blow to the imperial family's reputation. Mu Yao, isn't your wish to travel the world? I'll let you give up your identity as an imperial daughter and take your 3 husbands and 4 attendants to travel the world. Of course, you're still my daughter. I'll give you money and send people to protect you." Mu Yao was stunned for a moment. She looked at Ning Shu and finally knelt on the ground and kowtowed to Ning Shu. She said with tears flowing down her face, "Imperial Mother, I'm willing. But I can't bear to part with you. It's fine, you can come back to see Imperial Mother at any time. Mu Yao, don't have the intention to harm others, and don't let your guard down against others. Even if it's the people by your side, you have to be extra vigilant." Ning Shu looked at Mu Yao's reluctant and pure face and couldn't help but speak out. Mu Yao's tears flowed down when she heard Ning Shu's words. "Imperial Mother, you're so good to me. I can't bear to part with you. Then don't marry Yuan Jun, Mu Yao hiccuped. Let's go. When the time comes, listen to my command. Ning Shu waved his hand. Mu Yao stood up and moved in front of Ning Shu. She kissed Ning Shu's face and hugged Ning Shu. Her body was in so much pain that it convulsed slightly. Imperial Mother, I love you. Ning Shu grinned. It's fine as long as you're happy. As soon as Mu Yao left, Ning Shu couldn't help but vomit a mouthful of blood. There were more blood clots than the last time. Ning Shu suspected that his lungs were already riddled with holes. The imperial bodyguard that Ning Shu sent out found Yuan Jun. They found her in a small brothel in Xian City. Yuan Jun was treated as a male prostitute and was molested by several women. The Prime Minister's son, Yuan Jun, had already lost her chastity. Moreover, Yuan Jun should be married to the fourth princess. It was simply a big scandal in Xian City. Yuan Jun who was found was disheartened and planned to commit suicide. However, she was saved by someone. Mu Yao ran in front of Yuan Jun and said that she wanted to marry Yuan Jun no matter what. She didn't care about her chastity at all. In such a situation, Mu Yao could still marry Yuan Jun. Yuan family was naturally endlessly grateful. The marriage was held as usual. Ning Shu sent a lot of jewelry over. These things should allow Mu Yao to live a peaceful and happy life for the rest of her life. The men around Mu Yao loved Mu Yao very much. Mu Yao should be as happy as in the plot. Now what Ning Shu wanted to do was to make Mu Yao disappear. Mu Yao, the fourth princess of the imperial family, would disappear from the imperial family's genealogy. Naturally, she wouldn't have the right to inherit. People like Mu Yao living in the complicated imperial family would be very miserable. She couldn't play with these people. Your Majesty, the Empress Phoenix is here. Autumn Maid looked at Ning Shu's ashen face. The Empress Phoenix said that she hasn't seen Your Majesty for a long time. She's worried about Your Majesty. Ning Shu nodded. Put on Zhen's makeup. Now, Ning Shu was facing a problem. That was, she didn't leave her bedchamber. This made Lu Chongqing feel that something was wrong. He felt that Lu Chongqing was here to verify something. After Autumn Maid finished putting on the makeup, Ning Shu ate another antidote pill. He kept chanting the clear heart incantation in his heart. Let him in. Ning Shu sat in front of the table and flipped open the memorial. Before he saw Lu Chongqing's figure, he first heard the sound of the xiangfei bamboo on his body colliding with the jade pendant. Ning Shu raised his head and saw Lu Chongqing dressed in ivory white brocade clothes. He walked at a pace that was neither fast nor slow. He was very elegant. Lu Chongqing bowed to Ning Shu. Your Majesty, are you not feeling well? I haven't been to the imperial harem for a long time. Ning Shu said with a tired expression, recently, I've been very tired. I really don't have the strength to do anything. Lu Chongqing furrowed his brows. His cold voice was filled with concern. Your Majesty, have you seen an imperial physician? Your Majesty should go out of the palace more often. It's easy for one's mind to become tired if you're always in the palace reading memorials and dealing with government affairs. Ning Shu, walk my ass. For her, walking right now was like going to hell. Facing Lu Chongqing's concerned gaze, Ning Shu did his best to curl the corners of his lips. He said, many thanks for the Empress Phoenix's concern. I will go out more often in the future. Lu Chongqing walked to the table and reached out to hold Ning Shu's hand, which was in so much pain that the veins were popping out. He said, Your Majesty, nothing is more important than your body. Chongqing hopes that Your Majesty will be in good health. Ning Shu smiled. I will take good care of my body. The Empress Phoenix must also take good care of her body. Chapter 546. Ning Shu's hair stood on end when Lu Zhongqing held his hand. There was a metallic taste in his throat. He hurriedly pulled his hand away and picked up the teacup to drink. Lu Zhangqing saw that Ning Shu's hand was trembling as he held the teacup. A worried expression appeared on his cold face. "Your Majesty, what's wrong?" As he spoke, he held Ning Shu's hand again. "Your Majesty, you're not feeling well. Why are your hands so cold and trembling?" Ning Shu was speechless. Fuck, talk properly. Can you not shake hands?" Ning Shu's face trembled. He curled his lips and said, "This is because I'm hungry. I'm so hungry that I'm trembling." A faint smile appeared on Lu Zhangqing's face. It was incomparably elegant. Ning Shu asked, "What does your Majesty want to eat?" Ning Shu frowned. What was Lu Zhangqing doing? "Let's just have soup." "Phoenix Empress, you personally made it." Ning Shu only wanted Lu Zhangqing to leave quickly. Her entire body was in so much pain that it was spasming. Lu Zhangqing released Ning Shu's hand and nodded. Ning Shu bowed and left. After taking 2 steps, he turned his head and said to Ning Shu, "Your Majesty, I hope that your Majesty can handle the matter of the Crown Princess carefully. Do not hurt the relationship between mother and daughter. No matter how things develop in the end, I hope that your Majesty and the Crown Princess will be well." Ning Shu finally understood that Lu Zhangqing had come because of Mu Shui. Because of the issue of the male pets, Mu Shui had been grounded for a month. Lu Zhangqing had come to plead for leniency, but his attitude didn't seem like one. What was with his disappointed expression? Ning Shu's face stiffened. He said coldly, "I had high hopes for her, but what she did really disappointed me. Her behavior was so unrestrained that the imperial censors caught her and openly raised a group of male pets. How would the people of the world view this? Have her properly reflect on her actions." Lu Zhangqing only looked at Ning Shu with a cold expression. He didn't argue for the Crown Princess. It seemed that he didn't care about Ning Shu's anger. "Zhangqing, go make soup for your Majesty." As soon as Lu Zhangqing left, Ning Shu bent over and vomited a lot of blood. Looking at the black blood clots in the blood, Ning Shu could imagine how terrible his body must be. Ning Shu sent the imperial secret guards to assassinate Mu Shui, intending to kill her directly. Once she was dead, everything would be over. If he really couldn't find a suitable candidate for the throne, he would directly give the throne to the mediocre second daughter. She really didn't have much time left. When it was time for dinner, the palace servants of Phoenix Perch Hall brought over the soup that Lu Zhangqing had made. The palace servants took the tonic soup out of the food box. Ning Shu smelled a rich fragrance. He could tell at a glance that the soup had been simmering for a long time. Ning Shu still did not drink the soup. He had always been wary of Lu Zhangqing, the Phoenix Empress. Ning Shu had always been wary of her. Ning Shu didn't know if Lu Zhangqing had noticed something. He couldn't guarantee that he was exactly the same as Mu Nishang, so he could only avoid interacting with Lu Zhangqing. What disappointed Ning Shu was that the imperial secret guards he sent out had all returned. A few of them had even been killed. Those who returned were also covered in scars. The imperial secret guards told Ning Shu that the Crown Princess's residence was heavily guarded, and that the Crown Princess herself was not weak. Those who were captured alive by the Crown Princess could only bite open their poison sacs and commit suicide. Ning Shu's heart sank. The Crown Princess was not weak. If she couldn't do it in the dark, she could only do it in the light. Now, he could only remove the Crown Princess from the position of Crown Princess. Ning Shu rubbed her forehead. Her head was throbbing with a throbbing headache. The mission was not easy to begin with. His body was not strong enough. He was in so much pain that he couldn't think. Ning Shu could no longer read the memorials by himself. He had to rely on maid Xiao to read them to him. His skin had already begun to bruise. His blood vessels must have ruptured and the blood seeped into his skin. What a broken body. Ning Shu gritted his teeth. Even if he had to die, he had to deal with Mu Shui first. When the weather was good, Ning Shu gritted her teeth and walked out of her bedchamber to stroll around. Because she always stayed in her bedchamber, there were already rumors that the Empress's body was on the verge of collapsing. Ning Shu could only drag his broken body around the palace. Everywhere he went, Ning Shu would praise the beauty of the flower. He would also say that the koi was fat and strong. He always wanted to make a scene. He wanted to tell everyone that the Empress was fine. The pain made Ning Shu's body weak. He placed his hand on Maid Qiu's hand. Most of the pressure was on Maid Qiu. "You must be tired, Your Majesty. Why don't you go back to the palace?" Ning Shu asked. Ning Shu squinted his eyes and looked at a pavilion not far away. He asked Maid Qiu, "Who is in that pavilion?" Maid Qiu looked and said, "That is the Phoenix Queen. I don't know who the other person is. Let's go take a look." There were still people in the palace that Maid Qiu did not know. Ning Shu walked closer and saw that Lu Zhangqing was talking to an 11 or 12-year-old girl. The girl was wearing plain clothes and had a stubborn look on her face. She had a fierce and rebellious aura. "My Majesty." When Lu Changqing saw Ning Shu, his face flashed with shock. The girl looked at Ning Shu. Her eyes were full of hatred. She looked scared and alert. She clenched her fists and slowly backed away. Ning Shu looked at the girl and asked Lu Changqing, "Who is this child?" Lu Changqing's face flashed strangely. He said, "This is Wen Guijun's daughter. After Wen Guijun passed away, this child has been in the cold palace." Mu Nishang had no recollection of this. Wen Guijun had been sent to the cold palace by Mu Nishang. He did not expect to have such a big child. "What is her name?" Ning Shu asked the girl. The girl looked at Ning Shu. Her face was full of sarcasm. She did not say a word. She was very cynical. "My Majesty, she has no name," Lu Changqing said. "She is not recorded in the royal family tree." Ning Shu nodded. His face was expressionless. Ning Shu's words seemed to provoke the girl. Her face became full of sarcasm and hatred. She was like a little wolf. She wanted to bite Ning Shu, but she was afraid that he was stronger than her. Ning Shu ignored the girl's hateful expression. He said to Lu Changqing, "What did the Phoenix Queen say to this child?" Lu Changqing's expression was calm. He said, "This child is pitiful. She doesn't have enough to eat or warm clothes. She has to fight for food with the lowest palace servants. Changqing feels sorry for her." Ning Shu heard these words. He was still expressionless. He glanced at the girl and said, "It's getting late. I should go back to the palace and read the memorials." From beginning to end, Ning Shu did not say anything about the child's existence. He was ruthless and cold. The girl looked at Ning Shu. Her eyes were red. Her expression was full of disgust. After Ning Shu left, Lu Changqing said gently to the girl, "Stay by my side. Don't go back to the cold palace." Lu Changqing reached out and placed his hand on the girl's head. His voice was full of pity. "You are the daughter of a royal family. You should not live like that in the cold palace." Chapter 547. Lu Zhangqing wanted the girl to live with him. But the girl's expression was very sarcastic. She pushed away Lu Zhangqing's hand on her head. "I don't want it. Who are you? I've lived in the cold palace for so many years. I don't need your fake kindness. Everyone in the palace is half-hearted. You don't have to pretend to be nice to me while thinking of how to use me." Lu Zhangqing frowned. He was very tolerant of the girl. He stuffed the snacks on the stone table into the girl's arms. "Take it and eat." The girl held the plate with an unnatural expression. "You gave it to me. I didn't ask you for it. The girl ran away in a flash. Lu Zhongqing looked at the girl's back. Her body was shrouded in an indescribable sadness, confusion, and struggle. Ning Shu walked back to the sleeping quarters. He lay on the dragon bed, unable to move. His clothes were also drenched in sweat. He vomited blood, which flowed from the corner of his mouth to his neck. The bed sheets were covered in blood. Autumn Maid wiped Ning Shu's mouth while crying. Your Majesty, should we call the imperial physician? Ning Shu didn't say anything. He felt that his body was already smashed to pieces. Death by 1,000 cuts was nothing more than this. Ning Shu personally tested the most vicious curse in history. After going out for a trip today, Ning Shu felt that her days were getting shorter and shorter. She would probably break down soon. Your Majesty, where the Dragon Ball? Autumn Maid Ning Shu said. The immortals said it's good for the body. Ning Shu shook his head. Although it was called a Dragon Ball, it was actually the inner core of a spiritual monster that could be cultivated in a high-level plane. There was only energy inside, and it didn't have the ability to extend one's life. If Ning Shu cultivated the chi force of a peerless martial art, he might be able to absorb this energy. But if he swallowed the inner core now, he might be directly blown to pieces by the violent energy inside. Mu Yao entered the palace to see Ning Shu. Ning Shu could only climb out of bed and let Autumn Maid redo his makeup. When Mu Yao saw Ning Shu, she asked, Imperial Mother, when can I leave? Ning Shu said with some difficulty, I'm still planning. To make a princess disappear, there must be some twists and turns. Why are you in such a hurry? Mu Yao sighed. Her expression was a little helpless. She had married Yuan Jun, but Yuan Jun was always worried about her loss of chastity. She had repeatedly told Yuan Jun that she really didn't care at all. Mu Yao really didn't care. In her world, men didn't have any moral integrity and messed around too much. Moreover, the servants in the residence were also talkative and always said some bad things. The current Yuan Jun had fallen into a state of self-loathing. Right now, Mu Yao just wanted to take her mother and the male pets in the backyard to go sightseeing and travel to every corner of the world. In the past, she didn't have the chance to travel around the world. Now that she had the Emperor's mother's sponsorship, she was a little excited just thinking about it. Ning Shu drank a cup of water to suppress the blood in his throat before saying, It won't be long. When the time comes, listen to me. Thank you, Imperial Mother. Mu Yao was very happy. Imperial Mother, you're so good to me. Mu Yao hugged Ning Shu tightly to express the excitement in her heart. Imperial Mother, Ning Shu, fuck. So painful. As soon as Mu Yao left, Ning Shu vomited a mouthful of blood. Fuck, he got used to it after vomiting for a while. Late at night, Ning Shu sent out the Imperial Secret Guard to capture the young girl in the cold palace. Ning Shu sat on a chair and silently chanted the Clear Heart incantation. After a while, he opened his eyes and saw the young girl's mouth was covered by the Secret Guard. When she met Ning Shu's gaze, the young girl's eyes immediately became resentful. She directly bit the Secret Guard's hand that was covering her mouth. Without Ning Shu's order, the Secret Guard endured the pain in his hand. Ning Shu waved his hand to dismiss the Secret Guard. The Secret Guard let go of the young girl's mouth. The young girl's lips were stained with blood. It was obvious that she had bitten the Secret Guard's hand. From today onwards, you will be called Mu Qing, Ning Shu said. The young girl bared her teeth, which were dyed red with blood. Her expression was mocking. May I ask what Her Majesty means by this? Ning Shu glanced at her indifferently. Don't you even know basic etiquette? Slap her. Autumn Maid walked over to slap her, but the young girl, no, she was now called Mu Qing, pushed her to the ground. Autumn Maid fell to the ground. Mu Qing stood not far away and looked at Ning Shu provocatively with her arms crossed. She looked very smug, as if she had won against Ning Shu. Ning Shu didn't get angry. He only frowned. You've lived in a cold palace for so many years. How come you haven't been beaten to death? Mu Qing's expression was as fierce as a wolf's. I'm not afraid of death. Others are afraid of death, so I'm alive. Ning Shu made an "oh" sound. So she was holding on with her threatening aura. You're the high and mighty empress. Why do you care about a lowly person like me? Mu Qing's face was filled with disgust and hatred for Ning Shu. Her hands were clenched into fists, and her body was trembling slightly. Clearly, she was trying her best to suppress her emotions. Ning Shu drank a cup of tea and said, "Are you venting your dissatisfaction with me?" "No," Mu Qing said. "Mu Qing, I don't have a name, and I'm not called Mu Qing." Mu Qing interrupted Ning Shu. Ning Shu was very annoyed. Talking was already tiring, and this girl was still making a fuss. Ning Shu directly called the shadow guard in and said, "Beat her up. Just don't kill her." Mu Qing stared at Ning Shu with her eyes wide open. She was shocked, resentful, and wronged. Ning Shu said indifferently, "Although you're my child, you're still a stranger. You feel that I owe you anything for being able to decide your fate. But at least you're still alive. Your identity as the Empress can make others fear you. Otherwise, do you think you'd be able to live until now? Beat her." Ning Shu rubbed his forehead. He tasted something fishy in his throat and drank 2 cups of water in a row. Mu Qing didn't struggle. She squatted on the ground and hugged her head, allowing the shadow guard to beat her. Mu Qing bit her lips tightly and occasionally let out a muffled groan. "That's enough," Ning Shu said. Ning Shu looked at Mu Qing. "Can you talk properly now? Be more mature. I don't care at all about you venting your anger like this, and I won't feel guilty." Mu Qing looked at Ning Shu, her eyes red. "Don't you feel a trace of guilt towards father? I'm the Empress. There's a reason for everything I do." Ning Shu said indifferently. "I won't say anything about the past. Even if I was wrong, I'll just let it be." Mu Qing had been unruly before. Now that she heard Ning Shu's words, tears immediately fell. "Father was talking about you before he died, but he ended up wrapped in a mess. You didn't even know he was dead." Ning Shu's head hurt. He was in a daze. He kept chanting the clear heart incantation in his heart. Hearing Mu Qing's mournful accusations, Ning Shu was very irritated. She didn't have much time left. She didn't want to hear these old and rotten things. She didn't want to hear about the entanglement of love and hate. Chapter 548. Mu Qing cried her heart out, as if she wanted to cry out all the grievances she had suffered all these years. She wiped her tears fiercely, and her face was red from the rubbing of her rough clothes. "Your Majesty." Autumn Maid saw the veins on Ning Shu's forehead bulging, and even the veins on his face were very obvious. She couldn't help but ask, "Your Majesty, are you okay?" Ning Shu closed his eyes. From the moment he saw Mu Qing, Ning Shu had been thinking about giving the throne to this girl. Now that he thought about it, he was too naive. Mu Qing grew up in the cold palace, and there were many things that she didn't understand. She didn't have anything that a ruler of a country should have. It was better to give the throne to a mediocre princess. Mu Qing wiped her tears, looked at Ning Shu, and said, "Why are you looking for me? If there's nothing, you wouldn't have thought of me. Everyone wants to use me." "Everyone?" Ning Shu asked. Mu Qing's face showed her usual sarcasm. "The Phoenix Empress wants me to live with her. She says that I'm a daughter of the royal family and should live a luxurious life." Ning Shu frowned. "You know the Phoenix Empress? How could I know such a high and mighty person? One who is unaccountably solicitous is hiding evil intentions." Suddenly, two important people in the palace pay attention to me. What value do I have? Mu Qing sneered. Ning Shu rubbed his forehead. The severe headache made Ning Shu unable to think. Mu Qing was a worthless person. Why would Lu Zhongqing pay attention to her? Or did Lu Zhongqing and Mu Qing know each other? Mu Qing didn't appear in the plot at all. Mu Nishang didn't remember this person either. During the day, Lu Zhongqing seemed to be quite familiar with Mu Qing. Lu Zhongqing was sent to the cold palace by Mu Nishang. They were both in the cold palace, so Lu Zhongqing and Mu Qing should know each other. Then, Lu Zhongqing had the memories of his previous life. He might have been reborn. Perhaps it was impossible. Lu Zhongqing was in charge of the entire harem. It was normal for him to know that there was a child in the cold palace. However, Lu Zhongqing had never mentioned this child in front of Mu Nishang. Ning Shu's head was about to explode. He vaguely guessed that Lu Chongqing might have been reborn. Mu Shui might be a mission enforcer, and Lu Chongqing might have been reborn. Now, both of them seemed to want to take revenge on him. Ning Shu inexplicably felt that he had taken the blame for Mu Nishang. Originally, it was just a matter of an heir, but in the end, it had become so complicated. In particular, Lu Chongqing's seemingly emotionless attitude made Ning Shu unable to understand what Lu Chongqing was thinking. Mu Nishang had harmed the father and daughter so badly. Lu Chongqing, who had been reborn with resentment, had to do something. I have to speed up. Ning Shu asked Mu Qing, can you read? I can't even fill my stomach. How can I be literate? Mu Qing said sarcastically. Ning Shu's face was cold. Speak properly, don't be so sarcastic. Do you know how to read? Mu Qing bit her lips, looking resentful. A little. Come and read the memorial, Ning Shu said. Mu Qing's expression was very shocked, and a trace of suspicion flashed across her face. In the end, she obediently took the memorial and read it. She stuttered as she held the memorial. Her forehead was full of sweat. After reading it with great difficulty, she folded the memorial and put it on the table. Ning Shu rubbed his forehead and asked, what does the memorial say? Mu Qing curled her lips and said, this is a memorial from a local official who has been late in paying taxes. Ning Shu glanced at Mu Qing and asked, how do you think it should be solved? I don't know. Mu Qing said straightforwardly. What do you mean by letting me read the memorial? Don't tell me you want to give me the throne to compensate me. Ning Shu felt that Mu Qing was a smart person. She just didn't have a filter on her mouth. Is the throne so easy to sit on? Ning Shu called a secret guard and brought Mu Qing back to the cold palace. Before leaving, Mu Qing's expression was full of confusion. She didn't know what Ning Shu meant by this. Ning Shu sent a few secret guards to monitor Mu Qing's every move. He wanted to see what kind of attitude Mu Qing had after this incident and if there were any changes in her behavior. After Mu Qing left, Ning Shu lay on the bed with the help of maid Qiu. He was thinking about Lu Chongqing, Mu Shui, and Mu Yao. There were too many things that needed to be solved. The pain in his body made Ning Shu unable to sleep all night. It was as if there were steel needles stabbing his brain. The next day, Ning Shu came back from the morning court with difficulty and saw Lu Chongqing waiting at the door of the sleeping palace. Ning Shu was in so much pain that he didn't have any strength left. He didn't want to talk to Lu Chongqing at all. Lu Chongqing carried the food box and walked in front of Ning Shu. He was a head taller than Ning Shu. Lu Chongqing sighed. Your Majesty. Ning Shu, Phoenix Queen, what's the matter? Ning Shu asked Lu Chongqing. Lu Chongqing had a faint smile on his face. Under the morning light, a warm halo spread out, causing his cold face to have some warmth. Chongqing is here to deliver a tonic soup for Your Majesty. Your Majesty's body needs to be nursed back to health. Why is it soup again? Ning Shu was simply drunk. Ning Shu's lips twitched. He stared at Lu Chongqing without blinking. He wondered if Lu Chongqing had been reborn. "Why is your Majesty looking at Chongqing like that?" Lu Chongqing asked indifferently. Ning Shu originally wanted to smile, but his face was stiff and spasming. He could only say expressionlessly, "The Phoenix Queen is as elegant as when she was young." Lu Chongqing didn't deny it. He brought the tonic soup to Ning Shu and said, "Your Majesty, drink the soup. It'll be greasy when it gets cold." Ning Shu shook his head and said, "Phoenix Queen, I don't want to drink such oily soup this early in the morning." Lu Chongqing pursed his lips. In the end, he revealed a bitter smile. "Since your Majesty doesn't want to drink, then Chongqing will drink it." Lu Chongqing drank half a bowl of soup in front of Ning Shu. Ning Shu raised his eyebrows. What did Lu Chongqing mean? Was he telling him that the soup he sent wasn't poisonous? Lu Chongqing sighed. Ning Shu said, "Your Majesty, Chongqing can see that your Majesty's body isn't in good condition right now. Chongqing only hopes for your Majesty's health." Ning Shu drank a cup of water and suppressed the blood in his throat. "Thank you for your concern, Phoenix Queen. I just don't feel well. It's an old illness." Lu Chongqing pursed his lips. After a while, he said, "Your Majesty, do you still eat pills?" Ning Shu didn't mind and nodded. "Of course. If I don't eat, I won't have the energy. There are so many political matters to deal with. Eating pills can make me feel better." Lu Chongqing reached out his slender hand and wrapped it around Ning Shu's hand. Ning Shu faintly smelled his elegant scent. "Ning Shu, fuck, can you not shake hands? Can't you talk nicely?" Ning Shu could feel how stiff his hand was. The pain made his muscles extremely stiff. His pair of hands didn't have the smoothness and softness that a woman should have. But this Lu Chongqing was still holding his hand. Chapter 549. Lu Zhongqing lowered his head to look at Ning Shu's hand. The veins were bulging and the joints were protruding. Ning Shu pulled his hand back and tucked it into his long sleeve. Lu Zhongqing looked at Ning Shu, his eyes rippling with light. He said, "Your Majesty, please drink some soup." Ning Shu was speechless. Soup, there was no end to this. He was speechless. Lu Zhongqing moved the bowl to Ning Shu's mouth. It looked like he was forcing Ning Shu to drink the soup. Ning Shu symbolically drank a mouthful. Lu Zhongqing then said, "Your Majesty, drink some more." Ning Shu furrowed his brows tightly and shook his head. "I don't want to drink anymore." Drinking into the stomach was a burden on the body. Lu Zhongqing pursed his lips and put down the bowl. He took Ning Shu's hand and lowered his head to look at Ning Shu's unsightly hands. "Your Majesty, your body really needs to be nursed. Pills will only empty your body." Ning Shu grunted. The two sank into silence again. Lu Zhongqing turned to the side and picked up the food box. Ning Shu said, "Your Majesty, Zhongqing will leave first." Ning Shu grunted again. Lu Zhongqing's body paused for a moment before he finally left unhurriedly. As soon as Lu Zhongqing left, Ning Shu immediately leaned against a pillar. Holy shit, his legs were so weak that they couldn't stop shaking. "Your Majesty, your Majesty." Autumn Maid hurriedly walked into the palace. Because she was in too much of a hurry, she tripped over the door sill. She said to Ning Shu, "Her Majesty Huang Si Nu has left." Ning Shu suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. Autumn Maid hurriedly supported Ning Shu's stumbling body. Ning Shu wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. "What happened to Her Majesty Huang Si Nu?" "Her Majesty Huang Si Nu has left," Autumn Maid said sharply. "Nonsense, Old Fourth was still here when the morning court was held," Ning Shu said fiercely. What's going on? The Crown Princess and the fourth Imperial daughter have gotten into an argument. I'm not sure what the exact reason is. The Crown Princess is in front of the palace right now. Maid Autumn came over to support Ning Shu. Find a palanquin, Ning Shu said. Ning Shu sat in a palanquin as he was carried into the imperial palace. Mu Shui was kneeling on the ground while Mu Yao was lying on a stretcher covered with a white cloth. Beside the stretcher was a man in sky blue clothes. The surrounding ministers were discussing spiritedly. Since such a big thing had happened, these ministers naturally had to come. Ning Shu endured the intense pain in his entire body as he walked over and lifted the white cloth, revealing Mu Yao's deathly pale face, and the clothes around her neck were stained with bloodstains. Imperial physician, come take a look at Old Fourth. Ning Shu shouted at the top of his lungs. Blood surged up from his throat, but it was forcefully swallowed by Ning Shu. The imperial physician hurriedly examined Mu Yao and felt her pulse. After examining her pupils, he knelt and said to Ning Shu, Her Majesty Huang Si Nu has indeed passed away. The back of her head was struck by a great force. Ning Shu staggered twice as he stared fixedly at Mu Yao who was on the stretcher, and he said with a hoarse voice, What exactly happened? The man kneeling beside Mu Yao's corpse, Ning Shu, kowtowed, and his voice carried bone-deep sorrow and hatred. Your Majesty, the Empress Dowager can testify. Her Majesty was killed by the Crown Princess. Ning Shu's eyes were bloodshot, and the veins on his forehead were bulging. He looked exceptionally terrifying. Crown Princess, what happened? Ning Shu gasped for breath. Give me a reason why you killed your own sister. Mu Shui's brows were tightly pressed together as she kowtowed and said sorrowfully, Imperial Mother, I was wrongly accused. It was fourth Imperial sister who made the first move. I only pushed her away, and she fell to the ground. Ning Shu's body trembled violently. She died from a push. Mu Shui's expression was cold. I don't know what happened either. You don't know what happened, but do you think I know what happened? Ning Shu was so angry that he laughed instead. He pulled the coiling dragon jade pendant from his waist and threw it at Mu Shui. Mu Shui originally wanted to dodge, but in the end, she didn't. The jade pendant smashed into her brow bone, instantly causing it to swell. The jade pendant fell to the ground and shattered into pieces. You were under house arrest, so why did you run to Old Fourth's residence? Ning Shu's eyes fiercely scraped at Mu Shui. I told you to reflect on your actions, but you disobeyed the imperial decree. Crown Princess, you are simply lawless. Do you want to take my throne now? Mu Shui repeatedly kowtowed and fearfully said, I don't dare. I don't have such intentions. Mu Shui took a deep breath. Seeing Ning Shu looking at her with vigilance and disgust, she hurriedly kowtowed and repeatedly said, I was wrongly accused. Ning Shu wiped his tears and fiercely said, as the eldest sister, as the country's heir, you don't empathize with the people, and you don't love your sisters. With your conduct, how can I hand over the country of Xian to you? What reason did you have to disobey the imperial decree and run to Old Fourth's residence when you were under house arrest? Ning Shu was somewhat unable to stand and his body staggered. Autumn Maid hurriedly supported Ning Shu and had someone bring a chair. Mu Shui knelt on the ground with her forehead touching the ground. She didn't say anything. Nothing she said right now would be wrong. Mu Shui glanced at Ning Shu who was sitting on the chair with the corner of her eyes. Her expression was incomparably ferocious, as if she wanted to devour someone. Mu Shui's brows slightly revealed a trace of mockery. Losing your most beloved daughter, isn't it a heart-wrenching pain? Why did you two start arguing? Crown Princess, are you mute? Ning Shu's body trembled violently. Mu Shui tightly pursed her lips. She could say that she heard that there was a dragon robe in Old Fourth's residence. It was confirmed that there was a craftsman who made the dragon robe for Mu Yao, so she took the risk to go to Old Fourth's residence and had her subordinates search for traces of the dragon robe. When she went to Old Fourth's residence, she saw Mu Yao and Yuan Lang eating breakfast. They were even feeding each other, so Mu Shui casually said, "The two of you are really loving each other." Mu Yao's face immediately changed. She angrily said to Mu Shui, "Eldest imperial sister, what do you mean? Is it wrong for an imperial sister to be loving her husband?" Perhaps it was because Mu Shui's voice had a trace of sarcasm, but Mu Yao keenly sensed it. She made a fuss and asked Mu Shui what she meant. Mu Shui was a little impatient. She stretched out her hand and pushed Mu Yao, who was making a fuss, away. Mu Yao staggered and fell, the back of her head hitting the corner of the table. Things developed too quickly. Even Mu Shui herself didn't react. Now Mu Shui was kneeling on the cold floor. Her heart was cold. She had been schemed against. But Mu Shui calmed down in an instant. She didn't say that she was wronged. She directly said, "It was this son who pushed Mu Shui, but this son didn't want to kill fourth imperial sister. This son isn't worthy of being the crown prince. Imperial mother, please depose this son. Your Majesty, please calm down. How can a crown prince be deposed just like that?" The ministers all knelt to plead for mercy for Mu Shui and Ning Shu. "Your Majesty, deposing the crown prince will shake the foundation of the country. Please reconsider. Her Highness, the fourth imperial sister's matter was an accident." A minister stood up and bowed to Ning Shu with a board in his hand. Ning Shu glanced at the ministers kneeling on the floor and then at Mu Shui, who was kneeling on the floor and sincerely repenting. Threatening her. Chapter 550. Mu Shui wanted Ning Shu to cripple her, but that was only to retreat in order to advance. Then the ministers would put pressure on Ning Shu. Ning Shu looked at these people and said mockingly, "It was my daughter who died. You people are just standing there and talking. Mu Shui, your sister died because of you. Don't you feel guilty?" Mu Shui kowtowed to the ground. Her voice was muffled and nasal. "I never wanted to kill fourth sister. I don't deserve to be the crown prince. I beg you, mother, to cripple me. Your Majesty, please reconsider." The ministers immediately cried out. Ning Shu looked exhausted. In the end, he waved his hand and said, "The crown princess is to reflect on her mistakes. Without my decree, she is not to take even half a step out of her residence. I thank you for your grace, mother." Mu Shui kowtowed again. Ning Shu looked at Mu Yao on the stretcher. "Prepare a coffin for fourth princess." Ning Shu staggered as he walked. If it wasn't for autumn maids supporting him, Ning Shu would have fallen to the ground. Mu Shui looked at Ning Shu's back, her eyes deep. When she returned to her chambers, she collapsed on the bed without any strength. It was a long time before she said, "Bury fourth princess as quickly as possible." Autumn maid answered, "Yes." Because there were no ready-made coffins, Ning Shu gave Mu Nishang's imperial coffin to Mu Yao. The ministers wanted to say that this was against etiquette, but when they saw Ning Shu's red eyes filled with coldness and hostility, they didn't dare say anything. In this matter, the crown princess was in the wrong. The crown princess was only grounded, but the fourth princess was dead. It was dangerous for them to speak up for the crown princess. They didn't dare provoke Ning Shu again. Fourth princess's body was placed in the coffin as quickly as possible. The next day, they were ready to bury her. The outside world only said that Her Majesty couldn't accept fourth princess's death. She just wanted to bury her quickly. She also wanted to protect the crown princess. Late at night, white sails were hung in the main hall. There was a weak oil lamp, and the bean-sized flame flickered occasionally. The gorgeous coffin was placed at the center, and it emitted a ghastly feeling. Ning Shu walked into the hall and pushed open the coffin with great difficulty, then she stretched out her hand to pat Mu Yao's face as she said, "Hey, you're awake. Mu Yao's face was pale. She wore gorgeous clothes and lay motionless in the coffin. Ning Shu pinched Mu Yao's nose. Mu Yao was at first, but in the end, she couldn't hold it in. She opened her mouth to breathe. Ouch! My head! Mu Yao crawled up from the coffin with difficulty, and she rubbed the back of her head. Imperial Mother, your son's head really hurts. Why didn't you bandage it for your son? To die. Mu. Mu to die to be to be to die to die to be to die to be to die to be to be. Nail the coffin shut. Ning Shu ordered the two Mu. Ning Shu leaned against the pillar of the hall. He looked at Mu Yao, who kept touching the back of her head, and said, "Live well with Queen Mother in the future. He told me to go to the Imperial Mausoleum to guard your grave." Ning Shu felt that the current Queen Mother was different from the Queen Mother in the plot. The current Queen Mother suffered a lot of criticism because of her loss of chastity. She had to face strange looks wherever she went. No matter how much ambition he had in his heart, it was useless. Ning Shu could also see that Mu Yao's death was a blow to Queen Mother. After all, Mu Yao treated Queen Mother sincerely. When Queen Mother was in despair, Mu Yao didn't leave her side. She planned to spend the rest of her life in the desolate Imperial Mausoleum as a tomb keeper. "Thank you, Queen Mother. I understand," Mu Yao said with a smile. "Thank you, Queen Mother, for everything you have done for me. Now, I'm going to go out and travel the world." Mu Yao said, "I'm going to travel the world with Queen Mother and the person I truly love." Fuck, what a good life. She was so jealous. She was so miserable. She didn't have long to live, yet she still had to worry about it every day. "Go out with the funeral procession tomorrow. I'll send people to protect you." Ning Shu instructed, "Don't let anyone discover you." "Can you do it?" "I can do it." Mu Yao patted her chest and promised, "I definitely won't cause trouble for Queen Mother." Ning Shu watched as the Mu guards nailed the coffin shut. He patted Mu Yao's shoulder and turned to leave the hall. On the second day, Ning Shu looked at the long funeral procession that left the imperial palace, and Mu Yao was mixed in with the funeral procession. Mu Yao turned around to glance at Ning Shu, who stood high above, and she wanted to wave her hand and say goodbye. But when she considered the situation, she could only obediently follow the procession. Ning Shu breathed a sigh of relief when he saw Mu Yao leave the imperial palace. He sat on the sedan chair and returned to the imperial palace. Ning Shu didn't attend court for several days. Ning Shu didn't want to attend court in the first place, but now he found a reason. He was too sad about losing his daughter and didn't want to attend court. "I'll kill anyone who dares to attend court." This gave Ning Shu, who was struggling at death's door, a chance to rest. To Ning Shu's disappointment, this incident didn't remove the crown princess from the position of crown prince. This was clearly not enough. Moreover, the minister was so strongly opposed because Mu Yao was already dead. There was no need to sacrifice a living person for a dead person. The dead had no value. Besides, a living Mu Yao wasn't as valuable as Mu Shui. Mu Shui was grounded indefinitely by Ning Shu. Lu Chongqing didn't say anything and continued to deliver tonic soup to Ning Shu. He then held Ning Shu's ugly hand and instructed, "Your Majesty, you need to recuperate." Ning Shu was speechless. In any case, Ning Shu couldn't figure out what Lu Chongqing was up to. In the dead of night, Ning Shu caught Mu Qing, who had been left out in the cold for a long time. She was still wearing ordinary clothes of poor quality. Mu Qing looked wary and suspicious when she saw Ning Shu. She asked, "Why are you looking for me?" Mu Qing had been very cautious these days. She really didn't know what her nominal mother was up to. She had been left out in the cold. She had to be very careful in the cold palace. She had a feeling that this person was up to no good. Ning Shu looked at Mu Qing, who was like a hedgehog covered in spikes. He asked, "How have you been?" Mu Qin was speechless. Mu Qin's current mood could only be described as, "What the fuck?" He was asking her how she was doing. He was obviously mocking her. How could he toy with her like this? Mu Qin bared her teeth. "I'm doing well. Very well." Ning Shu nodded and took out a memorial. "Come and read it." Mu Qin scratched her head in annoyance. She picked up the memorial and read it. After reading it, Ning Shu asked her how to solve the problem. Mu Qin directly said that she didn't know. Ning Shu glanced at her and took out a memorial for her to read. After Mu Qin finished reading it, Ning Shu asked, "If it were you, how would you deal with this matter? What is the intention of the minister who submitted the memorial?" "I don't know." Mu Qin said directly. Ning Shu took out another memorial. "Read it again." Mu Qin could tell that if she didn't give a solution tonight, she would keep reading the memorial. Old Witch, you're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.